Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to Hash Church 2.0. Today's episode is the past, the present, and the future of Rosin. And let's get right to it and invite in our panelists. This morning has been a little bit chaotic, I will not lie. Had a little bit of technical difficulties with a few of the different panelists. High pressure yesterday. We came in on a phone, so he's not going to be able to make it in today. We're hoping for the best with Solvent Zero, although he could not hear me, and I'm hoping that you guys can hear me. Can you hear me? Let's just figure it out here. Good morning to everyone in church. Yeah, Hash Church is live. It looks like so far so good. It looks like people can hear me, so that's wonderful. I've sent out the link, and I'm just hoping that it's going to work out rather well today. So far, we have 275 people in the queue watching the show. Good morning, Chris M. and Tara Lee, Mass Melts. And this is who wasn't able to hear me earlier, so let's hope for the best. Can you hear me now, Matt? Can you hear me now, Matt? Well, we'll see if he can hear me. Hey, welcome.
What's up?
Welcome, dude. What's your Instagram name, just in case you don't want me using your actual name?
It's Two Turn to Skirt.
Two Turn to Skirt. Dude,
Yeah.
Welcome, bro. Welcome to Hash Church. I'm very glad to have you in here. I was very impressed with the photos that you'd been posting on Instagram, and that's really kind of what got you an invite in today to our conversation on the past, present, and future of why not have panel before going live? Okay, let's answer this because people always love to ask this question. What happens when I go live? When I invite the entire panel in before I go live? What it's done in the past is it's locked the camera on one particular person for the entire show, and it has not given me the ability. So what I've learned from Google and YouTube is that I need to go live and then invite the panel in. What's going on, Solventless Mind? In the house, Matt in the house, double Matt in the house. We got Sasquatch in the house. Matt and Joel are there. I don't see their camera. How's it going, guys?
Good, man. How are you?
Very good. You guys don't have a camera working or what?
I don't know what's going on. It's just showing the logo here.
Yes. This is why I love to do testing prior to the show going live.
There we go.
There he is, man. Good to see you, dude. Good to see you. I like the busy wall behind you. It reminds me of my busy wall.
Yeah. I just got my new office, so it's pretty chill.
Beautiful. Can you hear us, Solventless Mind?
Yeah, you guys hear me?
Oh, yeah, we can hear you perfect. Excellent. I was having problems with the other Matt from Solvent Zero. He's not able to hear this morning. I've got him on mute right now, but he's going to try and figure it out. We got Two Turn to Skirt in the room as well. I'm sure you guys have seen his awesome photos. I'm pretty sure Matt and you know each other, at least, I think.
I'm not sure if we met, but yeah.
Yeah,
always good work, dude.
Yeah, thank you, man. I appreciate everything.
Excellent. Well, I got my unit set up right here today for a little bit of pressing, just because I figured might as well. When in Rome, when we have the Rosin conversation. I've been excited to have this conversation. It definitely doesn't have the same history as Hash, so we're not going to have Chris Bennett open it up with 20 minutes of epic Hash history. I am one of the few people that calls Rosin oil. I know a lot of people in the community call their oil Hash, and maybe it's fine to do that. I've just kind of grew up more old school, and I've always kind of deciphered a difference between oil and Hash, a beautiful difference, not definitely thinking one's better than the other, but I do see a difference, mainly in the sense that only the greatest quality Hash will melt into a liquid, whereas even the shittiest oil I've ever seen in my life will also melt into a liquid. So it's not really a way to decipher quality when it comes to oil. There's different ways that we decipher quality. The melt factor is not one of them. And I often see people say, oh, my Rosin or my BHO is 6-star. And I'll be like, well, star rating is really the melt rating. So I'm not sure maybe we need to come up with a new rating for oil that's based more upon the quality or the texture or those sorts of things. But just wandering off here into the live chat. We got a bunch of people, 459 people in the room right now. Hopefully everyone else is getting the link I guess I'll send out the secondary link to the other group of guys. I had a couple of reserves in place. A couple of different rosin press companies, actually, Peer Pressure and Evolved. I sent them out a link right now to see if they want to come in, as some of the other people are taking their sweet time. I'm really hoping that Compassion can come in, because he was the guy that first posted Rosin Tech online years ago. It's got to be like 12 or 13 years ago, maybe more. I know the IC Mag post was done on 2006, but I was certain that he had done one prior on Overgrow in like 2003 or 4. I could be wrong about that. That's why it would be great to have him in here and tell the story. Welcome, Lindsay, I believe that is.
Hi, Marcus. Thank you.
Yeah, well, you know what? When other people don't show up, the reserves get the link, bro. So we'll definitely go through and do sort of an introduction. Everyone can kind of, at one point, we'll kind of let each person go through and talk about, you know, how they got turned on to cannabis and how that eventually led them into extracts. Ideally, how it led them to producing rosin, which, of course, we all love to call a solventless oil. Whereas, that is a misnomer. There's definitely hydrocarbons, terpenes present in these oils. But hey, I've been known to use it myself. There it is right there, the solventless quiver. So we do use that term, but it is a misnomer, kind of like strain when we're talking about cultivars. But it is what it is. I don't think we're going to be... oh, Chad's not making it in here. That's too bad. Hey, welcome, Eric.
Hey, how's it going, everyone?
Very good, very good. We got, what do we got? We got 3 rosin. No, we've got 1, 2, 3. Yeah, we've got 3 rosin press manufacturers, and then we've got 3 rosin makers so far in the room right now. I thought it would be a good idea. I know Hash Church isn't really about a commercial, but obviously you're going to be able to mention your company name. You're going to be able to mention the technology that you guys came up with and how you guys came up with it. And it's obviously a positive conversation. We're not here to outsell one another on our machines. We're just here to kind of share information and let everyone know what's going on in regards to, rosin production. So we got 7 people, 533 people in the room. There's Honey Butter Rosin Co. just joined. What's up, Honey Butter? Another dude with some fucking sweet pictures, some sweet little videos. Always love to see your rosin, dude. How you doing? Welcome.
Good. Thanks for having me.
Dude, I love that you've got the headphones on, your shit's working, and we're dialed in. So maybe we'll start off with some introductions. I really did want to kind of start with the past. I guess I could send Chad a quick message to see if he is around, because we definitely need to get him in here. Yeah, another person I should have been testing it out yesterday. He's saying that his plugin is blocked right now. I don't know how to fix it. Sorry, not my computer. Oh, well, another time, my friend. All right, so Compassion is out. We're going to have to tell the history for him. I still believe it was a little bit before 2006, but let's just say the first IC Mag post that we saw was on 2006. This was Compassion producing. He was coming out with the rosin post, and I don't know if any of you guys remember that. It was very unique. It was symbiotic for bubble bags, because it was all about teaching people how to make oil, dabbable product, which, back then we weren't really dabbing, but if you remember, I was always hitting, along with Skunkman Sam and a few others, we were kind of dabbing. We were hitting it on a stainless steel screen. We were wafting the flame back and forth and allowing it to bubble and bubble up. And so the highest quality bubble hash, of course, would create large, big, clear domes. And so that was the pre-dab dabbing. Chad came up with this method where you would take the subpar hash that wasn't melting. He would place it in a double boiler, like a metal or a glass bowl that was inside boiling water, and he would put the hash inside the bowl, and with a metal spoon, he would gently milk the oils out of the wax membranes. And what would happen was you'd get these oil sort of wall. It would just like coat the side of the wall. and you would go around with the spoon. It was a very, very slow process. I would definitely say that it did not take off, and it was not popularized in any way, shape, or form compared to what Soil Grown did when he first squeezed a bud or some hash. Welcome to the room, by the way, Soil Grown. Good timing on that. Just telling the story about Compassion right now, producing the first rosin thread back in the mid 2000s on ICMag and Overgrow. And so what happened was you ended up with this ball of wax after you milked it around the bowl, and the bowl itself, you could take a razor blade and you could scrape it and it would shear off this like white, beautiful oil. No one had ever seen it at the time. It was definitely mind-blowing. And that to me is really, you know, we could always go back a little bit further in the past. I've had people tell me about pressing hash back in the day and pressing it way too hot and way too hard and ending up with some oil in the end results, like squeezing out of the hash. So I'm sure that happened in the third worlds in Lebanon and in Afghanistan when they were really hammering that hash down. I'm certain that there was product that was, you know, collected and you know, treated very specially. But in our community, the first time we really heard about it was in mid 2000s through Compassion when he wrote the post on rosin, and then it basically got forgotten about until and you know, for those of you that want to say, listen, anytime you give the history or your story on something, there's always going to be someone that comes in and says, that's not what happened, this is how it was, blah 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 blah. But I don't think any of us can deny that when Soil Grown first squished the bud or the piece of hash, I'll let you tell it in your own words here in a few minutes, that was really the true beginning of the rosin tech. It's where our conversation started in Hash Church through Soil Grown. And I would be hard set to say that any of you that have developed a machine or that have developed techniques in regards to this, if you followed back your history, I'm quite certain it would start with an Instagram post made by Soil Grown. So why don't we let Soil Grown give us an introduction? Just imagine a lot of people are watching that don't know who you are. Let us know who you are. Let us know when you got into this, and give us that story one more time for Hash Church. I know you've told it a few times, but the floor is yours, my friend.
All right. Hey, what's up, guys? So Soil Grown basically started back in like 2013, just washing hash. I started getting known just washing hash and stuff, water hash. And then basically got out of my dispensary, and then I started making hash at home. Didn't really know much what to do with it, so I just like mostly made it for the head, smoking it, ran out of my melts. And that's when, so back in the day, like the 3-4 star, I would press with the hair straightener between some parchment and try to thin it out, so I was able to dab it. So I wasn't trying to make rosin at the time, but I was just trying to dab something that wasn't very melty. So further down the road, started running out of all my full melts. Wasn't enjoying dabbing 3-4 star melts. So oh shit, I skipped something. So go back in the beginning. When I used to press out the hash, I accidentally pressed it out too hard one time, and I noticed that there was the shiny oil on the outside and all the contaminant in the middle. It was nice and dry. I didn't think anything of it at the time, so I pulled it all back together, repressed it, was able to dab it. Shitty hash, dabbed it though. So skipping way back ahead, running out of all my full melts. Basically, a light bulb went off in my head, and I thought about back when I overpressed it, and you know, realizing that there was the shiny and then the dry. So when that light bulb went off in my head, I actually just grabbed a piece of hash and I put it between a piece of parchment paper and I pressed it on the nail with my finger. So that's when I was actually able to see that the oil was coming out of the piece of hash. And so basically, once I opened up the parchment, there was tiny little drops of rosin in it, basically. So I'd say for about 2, 3, maybe a month, that's how I was pressing rosin. And then basically I grabbed not a hair straightener, a hair curler. So I started using a hair curler after that, and it wasn't working very well. My wife came in, she noticed I was using her expensive stuff. She gave me some broken hair straightener, and the hair straightener killed it. So I was pressing hash in between parchment with a hair straightener, no screen, and I would collect all of the oil around the sides and smack the dry hash out the center. So that's how I was making hash rosin back in the beginning. And then from there, ran out of all my hash, and another light bulb went off in my head. So we took a bud, thinking nothing was going to happen. And sure enough, between the parchment paper and the hair straightener, oil came right out. Yeah, it was just, we were all in awe. It was unbelievable. And then, yeah, and it just continued to evolve from there. You know, I showed friends, I posted online and stuff. And then word got around, and the next thing you know, lots of people were asking about it. The next thing you know, I'm on Hash Church. And, you know, that's when the screen came involved. People started pressing through screens, and it just kept getting better and better. So basically, that's the story of how I stumbled across Rosin Tech.
It's a major aha moment when you really think about it, because anyone that's ever squished with a hair straightener has known that if things don't line up properly, if you're not hot enough, if the bud's not good enough, if the combination isn't just proper, you don't get anything. I've pressed many a buds where I've just seen a hard bud cookie come out, a flat cookie come out at the end, and not see any oil. The first time Tony and I went to Jamaica for the High Times Cannabis Cup, I would say the first 6 to 7 people that came, we just had the old D-nail manual press. There was no other machine at the time. It was just the hairs. It was basically a t-shirt press, but they took the plates off and they put very small 5-inch by 5-inch plates. So it wasn't the full-size t-shirt press with the little manual hand. And after 5 or 6 times, both Tony and I were like, listen, I don't know if we can keep doing this bud, there's something wrong. And it wasn't until my friend Omar walked up to the table and slapped his buds down that we squished and saw this beautiful golden oil come. Hey, what's up, Joel? Just saw you in the corner of the screen when Matt coughed there for a second. And so we were like, oh my God, thank God it works, because it's, you know, it's that aha moment for you, Soil Grown, to me was a major thing, because and also the fact that you tried it with a bud, because let's be honest, not everyone has hash. And the minute you made that work with a bud, that shit was a game changer, because now anyone could, I thought immediately, I was like, oh my God, like you've actually saved lives in a sense, because, and not in the sense like people dying, I'm sure it's very rare, but we know people blow up and they burn their houses down making oil and then making butane. Butane was the first, like, I hate to use the term like wildfire, but it really did spread like wildfire, because it made it an opportunity for young people who didn't have a lot of a connection to the community to suddenly just be able to grab a can and grab some bud and blast and have this oil. Well, when you squished that bud, you took that away from the BHO community in a way that you offered something new up to the community that, to me, I mean, I'm not a religious person, but my God, that was a godsend for young people who are otherwise, I mean, think of all of you guys that are producing presses and inspiring people to make this solventless oil, as we say. It really is an inspiration beyond anything you can imagine, because people were blowing up. They were burning themselves and wearing those burns for the rest of their lives. And let's be honest, cannabis is such an amazing thing that the worst thing about cannabis should and always will be the DEA, not us blowing ourselves up and wearing scars on our face for the rest of our lives. As a parent, that's pretty sickening. So props to you, Soil Grown. You definitely lit a fire in all of us, I'm sure. I'm not sure anyone on the panel could say that they were inspired outside of what you did. I definitely give it up to Tony V and to Nika T, who were also using the hair straightener to press their bubbles to get it into a dabbable form. When they had dry powder, they put it in the parchment. And that's what I saw right before you came out and started pressing. I saw these guys pressing bubble really lightly. They weren't making rosin. They were just pressing, you know, bubble that maybe, for me, when people ask me how I prepared my bubble, I just squeeze it between my fingers. There, I got a dab. But, you know, we're in this new world of everything being a tech. And I know that I heard you before mention that you had seen Nika T or Tony or both of them pressing with a little hair straightener. That was my first rosin. Go ahead.
I'd have to say much respect to Nika T. I mean, if it wasn't for seeing that how he was pressing out his hash back in the day, thinning it out, I probably wouldn't have, pressed it out too hard and even came across that. But yeah, I mean, it's really it starts out that bubble hash from where I learned it from was nicotine, and it came from an accident, basically.
Well, some of the best things do come from accidents. I'll say this, and I'll say to all the people out there who are constantly like, I want to enter the cannabis industry. I want to start a business. How do I do it? I'm like, well, I'll give you a little Gary Vaynerchuk, because what you need to do is you need to fall on your face, and you need to not be afraid of making mistakes, because mistakes will lead you to what I call the aha moment. And that was an aha moment Soil Grown had when he slapped that bud in that parchment and squeezed it. And it was people in the community doing and sharing things that led him to be able to do that. So there's no single person that's innovating and coming up with things. We all get to stand on the shoulders of giants. And that's why I'm very happy to have all of you here today with us for this episode. So I guess what we'll do is we'll go through, welcome Ozzy from Elysian Research, just popped into the room, dude. I guess I'd like to do a little introduction. This could probably take the next hour, considering there's 9 of us in here. And it looks like Two Turnt is about to rip a bowl. So yeah, you do that. You rip that bowl, because we're going to start with you, bro. I've got you, Elysian, Eric from Peer Pressure, Solventless Mind. I'll basically let you guys know, but Two Turnt, why don't you give us your history, how you got into this, and how you figured out it was your passion. Tell us a little bit about it.
So basically, like 3 or 4 years ago, I started seeing everybody posting like more stuff about rosin tech and everything else, and it kind of caught my eye, because I've always been just one of those people that want to smoke, excuse me, the best quality stuff and everything else. And it started off with getting some bubble hash that my friend got that sucked ass, honestly, and he needed something to do with it. So I went and cleaned it up for him the best I could, and we got like the old, I just bought a bunch of mesh and would fold it up over it, and I used straightener for that a little bit. And then I took a break from squishing for a little bit with the straightener, because I have a hard time getting into things unless I have like the proper equipment to do it. So I waited until like I saw some of the first presses come out and everything else. And after that, I got my first press and everything, and I used that, and I just pretty much started getting like all the best quality flour that I could, and experimenting and just testing stuff at different temperatures. I hadn't seen people do stuff. I mean, I also do construction and electrical work, so I like learn a little bit of stuff from like the industry that I work in, and I take that and try and bring it over. And then a lot of the newer stuff, whenever I started in the last like 2 or so years, when I upgraded my press and everything, got a better one with more pressure and everything else, I was able to develop more of like a good technique and able to find better hash, because you know how it goes. As time goes on, things kind of just got a little bit better with the industry and everything else. And so probably about like 2 years ago, I started doing my first butter chips with the hash and stuff like that. And I kept trying to find like stuff that was better than what I could make. And I just always wanted to produce the best quality stuff to smoke. And then it got to the point where everybody wanted it, and I started producing for everybody else and everything on. And then from there, it just kind of took off. And I've always just liked to experiment with different temperatures and techniques. And honestly, like a lot of the stuff that I found out was found out by accident. That's the best way to figure things out, I've learned. That's how I figured out how to make like the solventless sauce and how to butter things out really well and stuff like that. So.
Well, here's one of your shots right here. Absolutely breathtaking. Looks just beautiful. Super quality. Definitely the shot that I was like, oh, I'm inviting this guy in for sure. So what, who was it, an Instagram post? Where did you first hear about rosin?
I just heard some friends talking about it from seeing it on Instagram, and then I started kind of looking into it more and researching some like forums and stuff like that and Googling it. And then looking through Instagram and just kind of hounding every kind of thing that I could find information on, Facebook and stuff like that too. And just started finding anything out that I could. And then I found like a lot of stuff. I got a lot of information from Elysian, actually, when they posted a lot of melting points and stuff like that, is really whenever I started being able to like tone in a lot more and figure a lot of stuff out, because that helps a lot whenever you can find out the melting points and stuff, especially with the hash and turning it into the rosin.
Oh yeah, the numbers and the data are definitely going to be helpful. I love the fact that, you know, these companies, when I just met Eric and the guys from Peer Pressure, I was really stoked on their digital readout that holds all the different pressures, and like it was, I'm sure he'll end up talking about it at one point in time. It's definitely great to have all these different rosin makers as well as rosin machine makers. I think the combination of the two is definitely how we're going to move this forward into, you know, the last hour of the show, which will be the future of rosin. We'll all get to talk about where we think that's going. And yeah, thanks for showing up to Turn to Skirt. I really appreciate it. I guess we'll move over next to Elysian Research. You guys want to, I'm not sure if it's you, Ozzy, or if it's your partner. Yeah?
Oh, it's actually me, Ozzy. Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, right on, dude. Why don't you tell us a little bit about you guys and how you came to be with Elysian Research?
I guess Instagram was actually very instrumental in kind of making things happen, forums, everything else. At some point when me and my partner actually ran into a lot of the stuff that Soil Grown was actually doing at the time. So it was incredibly instrumental for myself as an engineer, because, you know, I saw a lot of the equipment that people were currently using and everything. And so this was definitely an area where, you know, we thought we can try to help out in some sort of way. And along the way, doing all the research, doing all that work, it was just very important for us to share all that information with the community in general. So yeah, but I mean, besides that, we pretty much just got started. It was all just happenstance, in the sense that we just met, things clicked, and we're both kind of on board. Historically, I've always been a smoker. My business partner is actually a farmer. So and being an engineer, that's kind of where we were able to come together and actually make our current unit and sort of develop all the research around it.
Sorry, I had myself on mute while I was bong ripping. Tell us a little bit about your unit, dude.
So our current unit is actually a 30-ton unit. It's all CNC machined, all made of like some crazy tool steel and whatever the hell else, you know. Essentially, the whole point for us was to make a medium scale unit that can actually essentially outperform a lot of others and essentially increase the output. And that was pretty much our main goal in that respect. And as far as that's concerned, I believe that we were able to kind of hit a mark. But also it was very important for us to actually keep all the manufacturing here in the US. So, you know, doing that and actually getting all that together and everything was actually quite complicated, but it was nice doing so, because, you know, obviously we're able to deal with all these like American suppliers and everything, which, I mean, just makes the whole engineering process a lot easier. Besides that, I mean, we're actually using Electric electronics for our, you know, for our plans, which, as some of you might know, Electric is actually an Eno company, but they've actually designed and they've redesigned some of their controllers to actually be able to supply power to our unit. The other thing about our unit is that, I mean, it really only uses like 500 watts, but it's rated for 1,000 watts, you know, and that's one of the nice things about actually having a nice digital controller. I mean, I actually don't have very much experience with a lot of the other machines, but I know that everyone has their own merits and everyone has their own strengths, you know, and so it's really interesting to kind of just be in this forum and essentially and kind of hear everybody out.
Yeah, do you have any photos or video of your unit? I noticed your camera's not on, but maybe we could just put something on real quick to show people, you know, what it actually is.
Yeah, give me 1 second here.
Yeah, because I'm not sure. You should be able to turn it on to screensaver for it, because it's always good for people to be able to see. Elysian is one of the unique ones in a sense in that it swivels, so it's dripping straight down. I remember the first time I saw it, I was like, oh, like I just love the fact that we're attempting innovation, and it's not, like just do it, just attempt to do something different and always push yourself. And for me, when no one else was making bags, it was kind of boring, and then as everyone started to make bags, it became more exciting. And even in the 20 years that we've come out with bubble bags, I always ask people when they design something new, like I asked when my friends started wrapping their washers in these, in these little sort of padded filters. I'm like, why are you doing that? And they're like, oh, just to make it colder. And I'm like, but you understand, like 4 degrees is the perfect temperature. Like the heads are brittle, they're breaking off. Like you don't need to make it -3. It's, but at the same time, what we could do is make it faster. How could we get more of the resin off more efficiently, as clean, and make it faster? So I see the same thing with rosin presses. How can we make it faster? Because obviously that's the home units are great and awesome, but now it's going to be, how do we make it faster? Did you find that link, Elysian? Ozzy? Oh, you're muted. I probably muted you. I mute everyone just so you know, if your mic's not muted, I'll end up muting it. So remember that when you go to talk next time.
Working on it.
All right, no problem, no problem. We'll all have a little rosin puff. What's everyone puffing on? Puffing on some, actually I got some Where Is My Bike here I was thinking of pressing from the maple butter guys. This is a 30% yielder. The squishes, it looks like it's like someone put subpar hash into the press. It just squishes. Absolutely beautiful. I have my Sasquatch M1 set up here next to the desk. I love how little it is and that I can just have it right in my desk. And some people that haven't seen presses think that it's rather big if they've only ever used a hair straightener. But I'm like, yeah, you should try and lift my V2 into your car and see how that goes. And yes, I did carry that from my driveway up to my office by myself, Matt and Joel. So please, that's ridiculous. We do what we got to do. I like the big heavy units. I like the small light units. I love a unit that I can, oh wow, Chad thinks he's got it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Wouldn't that be nice to get him into the room and be able to tell his story of how he came up with it, because we need to hear. So let me see what he's saying. He is saying, I think I got it. It was a test room, right? Do you have the actual Hash Church link? Okay, let's send him the actual Hash Church link, because man, wouldn't that be great to get him in here. There's always, a lot of my friends live like in the boonies, like out in the boonies where there's like no internet connection. High Pressure was in that situation, I think. All right, let's send that to him. And while Elysian is gearing up and finding that, why don't we move over to Eric, and he can tell us how he got into this, where he came about finding his passion, and a little bit about peer pressure.
Hey, how's it going, everyone? Just getting over a cold. Sorry, I'm a little raspy. Got a lot of respect for everyone on the panel here. Thank you for the invite. It's really cool to meet a lot of the OGs of the industry and people that are putting out some terrific stuff. Those pictures you guys were putting up before looked insane. So nice work. I've always been passionate about cannabis ever since, my mom was catching me smoking in high school. Pretty much just dovetailed from there. And after I got out of school, I was working at tech startups and I just wasn't really happy. So I just dropped it. And when Colorado, did recreational here in 2014, things really started gearing up after that. And I jumped ship and worked at Massroots for a while, kind of in their heyday when they were actually really making moves. And that was a really good experience. But then a friend of mine, Josh, who's the co-founder of Pure Pressure, we just hung out and he was telling me about rosin. And, I had taken some dabs and was enjoying it quite a bit. And he started telling me, this is going to be big. You really want to come check this out. So went over to Pure Pressure, saw what Ben and Josh were doing, and he just really sold me on the future of rosin. And I just jumped ship, started working with Pure Pressure, and it's pretty much been history ever since. I really love where the industry is going and what we're doing. I think rosin has enormous promise, and it's beautiful to see that there's so many different people contributing, tons of different manufacturers, boutique growers, and, extraction people. I think rosin just gives people a lot of power to make concentrates and make top-notch stuff. So, my role at the company is not in the engineering capacity, but, we're a 100% USA company. And kind of like Ozzy was saying, I think, having companies here that are exporting cannabis technology is really cool. I mean, in North America is going to be driving the rosin industry for the rest of the world as, Germany, Spain, all these other countries start coming online, and we start seeing a lot of growth there. So I love what's going on with rosin. I think, what we do is make a press that's really geared towards the highest quality rosin possible. And also, like Ozzy said, everyone's got a different take and everyone's got a different goal with their equipment. So happy to answer any other questions, but, I think Ben and Josh, since they were the founders, they have a pretty interesting story where Josh was an industry specialist. He was growing and blasting and tried to get into rosin and was pretty unhappy with the results, using some of the very early generation rosin presses like you were discussing, not getting great results. And Ben, his friend, industrial engineer, he came to him and said, "Hey, can you just make me a better rosin press? These ones from overseas just aren't really doing it for me." And that's pretty much the story of Pure Pressure and how it was born.
Very cool, dude. Very cool. Do you want to maybe show a little quick clip or photo of the Pure Pressure machine? Or I've got one set up here if you want me to put it on. It's
yeah, sure. That might be easier.
How to use
on
the
our
Pikes
Instagram.
Peak. Yeah. This one's how to use the Pikes Peak rosin press. Is that a good one?
Yeah, I mean, we've got, if you're looking at our YouTube channel, we've got a bunch of good videos up. Pretty much any of them will fit the bill. Our Instagram also has a lot of good content. So we've got a lot of media out there.
Yeah, well, this is, to me, it's worthwhile. I mean, I know I always try to make it so it's not a commercial, but these guys are all producing units, and we can talk about them. You still have to see them and kind of get an idea. I saw both Solvent Zero as well as Pure Pressure at the Lift conference.
Nice.
And I was kind of stoked on both of them for different reasons, like Solvent Zero coming at the commercial production, looking at things in a way where it's like, oh, I want to create something that's got a flow and that you could really, run through 30, 40 plus pounds in a day with a single unit. But then the Pure Pressure guys had this really advanced computer screen that was measuring and keeping all the recipes that you used. And, his reply to how to get more out of it was to scale up. It's like, yeah, just scale up, dude. Get 4 of them going and you'll have 4 times as much rosin. So I was impressed with both of them for different reasons. We might as well put this 3-minute how-to video on. Good time for everyone to get a dab in. And I'll just figure it out over here. Let me see how I can do it so it's not all... Let's see what I got here. Okay, I think we got it. My monitor broke recently, so now I'm using this absolutely insane 40-inch TV as my monitor, and it's not ideal. But yeah, let's check this out real quick and see.
Yeah. Hey, sorry. Great suggestion. This is kind of one of our old videos. We have a new LCD touchscreen technology that's in all of our new presses that
I
we
saw
just
it actually.
updated.
It was much bigger.
Yeah, it's quite a bit bigger. One of the things, soil grown that you're talking with nicotine being really, influential in the industry. I'll just share a little story about how we linked up with Essential Extracts and nicotine. So one of the really key features of our press is our dual pressure, and it lets you ramp pressure since it's pneumatic. And the Essential Extract guys came by, they're in Denver, and they learned about us, and they said, hey, another Denver company, we'd love to go check out what you guys are doing. So they came by and they had, some just amazing hash, much better hash than we were used to seeing from, most of our prospective customers. And we were pressing it and it just kept blowing out bags. And we thought, you know what? They said, we love your press and we love your equipment, but, if we can't get some more control, I don't think that, we're going to be able to use it. So then Ben and Josh kind of got their heads together and came up with the idea to ramp the pressure with the toggle switch there with the compressed air input. And then after that, they were sold and started using our press. So, it's really cool how, different needs allow people to innovate on different things. Kind of like Ozzy was saying, depending on what your requirements are in your lab or your environment, you're going to want or need different things potentially. So, different challenges are always going to rise, and, manufacturers are trying to come up with the best solutions possible for that. So, recording data, being able to dial in the perfect press. I mean, that's kind of what we're really striving for more than anything, is just trying to figure out what is the perfect press for a given material. What's the best temperature, the least amount of time you're pressing it for maximum terpene and, preservation of your material itself. So, that's really what we strive for. It was really cool. I wasn't actually up in Canada for the LIFT conference. The rest of the team was, and they said that they had a really good time meeting everyone up there. I mean, I think the scene is really booming in Canada, and it's really cool to see where things are going. So love to, hear what everyone else is getting into. And if anyone's ever in Denver, love to have you by the factory. We have people by all the time, open invite. We're pretty much right in the heart of Denver. So anyone that's ever interested in coming by and taking a dab and checking us out, anytime you're in Denver, come say what's up.
Awesome, dude. Thanks for sharing. Yeah, that's LCD screen, or the screen that the digital screen that you had in at Lyft was much bigger for sure. I was noticing that right away. It had some more information too on it. But I guess Elysian, Ozzy, you wanted me to share that picture, and you can send me the link for your press right here in the chat room that's in this particular box, top left blue icon. And very smart as well, Eric. Very cool that you guys are, collecting that data and creating a press with as much control as possible, ramping up, and all the additional things is just, it's innovative, right? And it's one more niche aspect of the rosin industry, and there's so many different ones. It's such a new industry. It's exciting to watch it taking off here in the last couple of years. I'm just mostly a user, but I definitely do consult for LPs here in Canada as well as around the world. And I'm always telling them about the presses that I use and that I like. So keep up the great work. Ozzy, did you want me to share that picture? Are you there, sir?
Yes. Just hold on a second here.
Because I can put it up on my screen, the picture anyway, and then you can send me the link. So there is the Elysian. Boom. Looks pretty beefcake.
How big are those plates?
They're actually 6x6.
Okay, good question. Good question right off the bat. The true.
Yeah, absolutely. It's actually rated for 45 tons.
All right.
Is that press built on a swivel so you can bend it all the way to where it faces straight down?
Essentially, you actually have some extensions that are attachable or removable from the actual press, depending on essentially what it is that you need or what style it is that you prefer. But yeah, they're removable, and it allows you to actually tip the machine over. I'm gonna go ahead and send another link for another image of the actual machine tipped over.
All right. Did you send that to me?
Yes. 1 second here.
I got the first one. So yeah, there's obviously innovation going on. Can you imagine when we had Hash Church episode 25, there were no machines. I remember during that conversation, it was a hair straightener world. We were all rocking hair straighteners. And a lot of large bald men were buying hair straighteners. So
Yeah, I remember a lot of people laughing about pressing buds.
Yeah. I don't hear them laughing anymore. No, dude, that one was a mind blower. That was, you know, it gave me a new appreciation for bud, much the way sort of vaporizing does, but being able to extract the oil off of bud in an instant, like what an incredible way to test packs if you're purchasing large amounts. What an incredible way to test small packs if you're purchasing small amounts. Yeah. It's just such an incredible, I don't have to trust anything you say. I need to take a dab. I'll gladly buy a 1 gram bud before I get my ounce or my pound or my 10 pack or my 100 pack, whatever it is you're looking at. Bottom line, being able to test the percentage before you run it is some pretty baller shit.
Right.
I would say absolutely.
So I have a question.
Please.
I was wondering if you guys, what you guys think the, you know, like back in the day, all the Mexican, you know, the Mexican cartels and people like that, that were, you know, packaging up the swag ass shit, you know, the stuff that like came wrapped up and like seeds all squished into it. Yeah. You know what I'm talking about? Like the really garbage shit.
Brickweed.
I wonder if when they were pressing that, because they use jack setups to press that herb. And I was wondering maybe like if they're laughing the whole time because they're taking their herb and they're smashing it up into the press and like all the goopy resin's just pouring out the sides of the press. And they're probably filling up mason jars with this shit and just like dumping the herb off to all the Americans. And I was wondering if you guys thought it might be a possibility that they were making rosin before any of us knew what rosin was.
The secret of Mexico.
Yeah, I would say for sure. Just like back in Lebanon with hash and twisting of the bag, I'm sure the cotton bag was oozing resin at one point in time over a fire. Like guaranteed, they were using sledgehammers too in a more archaic version of what you were talking about. Jamaica for years. That's where a lot of that gum comes from, the edge of these big hammers. Guaranteed there was epic rosin content that was coming out of there. It just, you know, there was no way to popularize it. There might even been people that knew on a small level, but it wasn't until Soil Grown posted that shit on Instagram and everyone had a fucking iPhone or a Samsung in their pocket, and it was like, boom, millions of people just learned about this. Just like that.
Yeah, I just noticed that like when you squish nug, after you're done squishing it, it normally looks like the Mexican brick that they used to get on the East Coast. So I feel like I've even seen that shimmer, that shine,
yes,
on the outside of those bricks. And I'm like, man, these dudes might have been doing it before a lot of us. And like, they don't even know what the fuck they were doing. They were just laughing like, man, this shit gets us way higher than that swag ass nug.
Or even worse, in a total harsh reality, they were just tossing it out. It's like, oh, get rid of that shit. It looks ugly. Because it kind of used to be like that. Like people just threw everything away that didn't fit into the marketplace. It was really a particular person that would only, that, you know, like a skunk man Sam that would be like, no, that's the most important thing, because he doesn't think the way the market thinks. He thinks the way like a true head thinks, which is just quality, quality, quality. And so give thanks to Skunkman Sam for all he's done. So why don't you do your rosin introduction there, Solventless Mind? We are up to you right now. Tell us how you discovered it.
Well, pretty much I was back in Florida sitting at a homie's house. He was actually scrolling through Facebook and he came across a post on Facebook that had somebody showing that you could squish a bud in a piece of parchment. And I was laughing. I'm like, yeah, right. That's straight bullshit. Like, take a hair straightener, squish a bud, get a dab. Yeah, all right. So we literally grabbed some nugs, went to the store, bought some parchment, took his old lady's fucking hair straightener, and we made some. The first bud I pressed, man, I was like, wow, this just made instant dabs. Like, this is like literally you went from nothing to something, no purge, no bullshit. It's on the paper. Like, you can take a dab right now. That pretty much opened my eyes to a lot of shit. So when I moved to California, I started making bubble hash, had access to material being in Humboldt County, and the bubble hash wasn't the greatest either. You know what I mean? Just like fucking Phil was saying, like half melt garbage most of the time. So I was taking that stuff, and I literally, like, for one event, I used a hair straightener, and I crushed out a 1/4 pound of rosin. I made a 1/4 pound with my foot. You know what I mean? Using my foot, sticking it underneath my foot, stepping on it. You know what I mean? And by the time I was done with that, I realized at the event the next day that I could barely walk. Like, I was having trouble walking, man. My ass cheek was locking up on me. My I was getting like spasms from all this pressing I did the night before. So then I was like, all right, there's got to be a better way. Then you guys did the hash church, and you guys showed the t-shirt press. I'm like, man, I'd much rather be, smashing my hand down and like pushing the press down than like stomping my foot. This was before people were using clamps. So I was like stomping my foot. People were using their elbows. It was a nightmare. So the t-shirt press definitely took it to the next level. And then, of course, the Sasquatch rosin press, the V1, when I bought that, I was fucking stoked, even though I had to put the plates together to keep them, because I produce a lot. So, like, the only thing that I didn't like about that press was the fact that I had to put the plates together because I couldn't produce every, like, 5 or 10 presses. I noticed I had to put the plates back together, warm them back up. Otherwise, I wasn't getting the same results. But other than that, that's, like the history for me, man, like from the foot, like back in Florida, all the way to the point where, look, now we got the V2, the 2.5. I mean, it's like literally, I don't know, man, I can do crazy presses now. Like, I turn the work I used to take like days to do into hours.
Well, dude, I'll tell you, you just made me really laugh when you talked about the injury that you got, because both D420K and I both got injured making rosin. Fucking, I did my neck in so bad it hurt for weeks. I was fucking squeezing that motherfucker. It was like, oh, I just got to get every last drop out of it. So my hat's off to the innovators and the makers of the rosin presses, because holy shit, dude, hurting yourself making rosin got old fast. And I know your pain, dude. I know you're not talking some light shit. You were probably damn near crippled.
Dude, I was fucking hurting, man. I was crippled, like you're saying, walking around the event. I'm like, man, what the fuck is wrong with me? And I don't remember the whole night I'm taking taking little hash packets, putting them in the papers, sticking them in the hair straightener, standing up on it, squatting back down, all the squatting up and down all fucking night and stepping. I fucked myself up. But, like, I still don't even know if that was Soil Grown's post or not. You know what I mean? I don't know if I was late to the fucking party. It might have even been a post that Soil Grown made that was on Facebook that someone shared in one of the groups or something. I'm not really sure, but I'm doubting it was anybody but him. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, for sure. I feel the same way. Obviously, once we got a hold of it, it spread so fast, right? It wasn't like this bottleneck. It really went like this. Like at one point in time with Jeff Church and Johnny B and Ramo and Don and Aaron from DNA. And like, there was a whole bunch of people. I think Ramon was there, and True Cannabliss and Flav421, all of them for the first time. Great Gardner watching with a tiny little $10 hair straightener, like the one that's as thick as your finger. We're wrapping like a 1/2 gram of barb and just like melting that shit into like the most golden translucent, like 6-star bubble hash. Or dry sift even. That's some of the first shit that all of those guys saw pressed, which, of course it is. But still, what an incredible group of people to have around you while, hey, guess what? We have something to show you. And none of them had seen it. It was like they'd heard about it. It was like, yeah, I heard some guy on Instagram smashing nugs or whatever, but I haven't really seen it. It's like, well, you need to see it, bro. Boom. That was at Spanibus, like I don't know. Would it have been 2013 or 14?
2015.
2015. Wow,
yeah,
that's
dude,
awesome.
The excitement was real.
2 years.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
It's evolved fucking quick, dude. It's crazy.
This is really crazy. So I guess we're up to honey butter. We want to hear from you, dude, how you got into this, where you heard about it, how your passions led you into it, and how the fuck you make such awesome big giant balls of rosin. And then I'll be sending you my PO box later for no, I'm just kidding. Go ahead. Oh, you're on mute. We got 854 people waiting to hear what you have to say.
Oh no. Thanks for having me. Really grateful to be here. So I got into rosin about just a little over a year ago. I wasn't really a heavy dabber before I found out about rosin, BHO, it ruined my day. Dabbing ruined my day. If I dabbed in the morning, I was done. And I was at the Healing Harvest Fest up in Laytonville a little over a year ago, and I saw Pesbro rosin. And I was like, oh, it's a cool logo. Oh, this stuff's really bright colored. And, they talked me into a dab, and I was just floored. I was like, wait, you can make something that tastes this good, and there's no chemicals involved. And it just became my mission. I was like, I want to do that. I want to learn more about this. And just kind of hopped right in. So I was also new to Instagram as well. And I saw Soil Grown and Solventless Mind, Two Turn to Skirt, and a couple other guys. And I was just like, the little blackish green stuff that ran out of my hair straightener was not like what I was seeing online. I was just, what do I got to do to produce, to get this result? And it's just been my mission since. Just practice. Ruined a lot of pounds, wasted a lot of time in the car and on the washing machine running shitty material, realizing that you have to have a great starting material. That's the main metric to it. And
see, and how did you learn that? You learned that by having not great starting material. And that's what people should not be afraid to do.
Yes.
So I put up some of your work for everyone to see while you're talking.
Oh yeah, the cube.
Jesus.
I want to make a giant one, but it's such a labor of love that having that much rosin around at once, it's just you don't want it to go bad. You don't want it to oxidize. Where was I?
About quality.
Yeah, yes. So I get a lot of questions and stuff, and the main thing I just want to tell people is like, you can save yourself a lot of hassle if you just source really good material, but you're also going to like be in tears when you ruin that good material. So I think it is important to kind of work your way up, just kind of like coming from the culinary industry. I started out in delis and pizzerias, and then I went to golf courses, and then I finally got like a bistro job, and then finally into fine dining and stuff. You have to develop the skill set and the respect, and also learn a lot from your peers. There's people who are doing this way better than you, and there's something to it. You can't just expect to hop in and make a result. And realizing how much work that everybody's put into this craft is it's really cool that just with this day and age of Instagram, that you have this resource right at your fingertips. And more often than not, if you're respectful, people are willing to answer your questions. And everybody on this panel has probably got DMs from me from a year ago asking the stupidest fucking questions. Yeah.
That's the way to do it, though. Don't be afraid to ask the stupid questions, and don't be afraid to receive the answer that's not the answer you think you're going to get from your stupid question, because your reaction to when someone replies to your stupid question, it might not be the way you want it to be, but I guarantee you there's gold nuggets in there nonetheless, even though it might be hard to read.
Yes. It also might not be what you want to hear. You might, if you only have a limited view of your method and your technique, you haven't literally done enough squishes and opened your mind to just different perspectives of it to unlock what it is that you're seeking. And I squished a lot of 2-3 star bubble hash about a year ago and most of the spring, and then when we started growing with the express intent of squishing everything that we grow, it started to click. And the first time light dep last year was tough because I finally grew a good crop of weed for once in my life, and now I was about to offer it all up to the rosin press, and it came out okay. But after having a second crop last year and everything I learned from the first one, and just kind of hopping right back into processing after the full season crop, was just it was cool. I learned more in the last 3 months than I did in the previous 9, and now I just feel I'm at a level where I'm more receptive to learning. I've really only been doing this a short time, but I'm very passionate about it.
So what were some of your revelations, not to go too into detail, but just to give us a little bit of an idea, some of the things that were learned from the first crop versus the second crop?
Executing a faster press when pressing flour. In the first crop, I was letting my material warm up too long. I wasn't bringing the plates down far enough, and I was getting a darker color. And also where the rosin would be in between the parchment, in between the plates, I would notice that it had this kind of cooked effect. And I started thinking, well, I want to get this stuff just warm enough and loose enough and then get it out of there. And, you could do that at a low temperature. You could do that at a high temperature. It's all experimentation. Every material is different as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, even with such a tip that you just gave, it's still required to do all the work. It's not like the tip's going to save you doing all the work and learning the material. Dry sifting and wet washing is not too different. There's different types of resins. They all react differently. And if you pay attention to those subtle differences, you can have advantages, because a lot of people just aren't paying the same amount of attention. I think everyone's got the ability. I always gravitate towards people such as yourselves on the panel that are doing it at a high excellence, a high rate of excellence, that it's people are, all you guys are really doing is you're paying more attention than the average person. You're paying attention to the material that you're even bothering running. And when you run that material, you're actually paying attention to the temperature of your plates and the PSI and the materials being used and the times. And these are things that if you just kind of act a little laissez-faire about, you're not going to get the same results. And it's true. Each little thing that you make a mistake along the way, you can end up with a sort of darker, less desirable, less terpy material. I personally never pressed any burnt popcorn, but I did see it. And I was like, wow, that is definitely, I kind of got the idea why all these oil guys were like, oh, rosin, it's just all burnt popcorn. It's because the first time they tried it, they did it so terribly poor, probably the same way they make oil, that they ended up with this very low quality rosin. And I was like, man, I'm not seeing that at all. Like, I don't see that. I see like beautiful, beautiful shit that, looks just like the photos behind me on my wall. Super quality, super terp rich, grabs me, I'm coughing. I just don't see the reality that that the heat is destroying all the terpenes. I mean, obviously it must be volatilizing some, but maybe the most volatile ones are the harshest ones, and that's why we've always cured them out of our bud before we smoked, because they're not super enjoyable. I think that as I get older, I want less to do with those super caustic, volatile, early terpenes and terpenoids that usually are the ones that would cure out in your curing process. So I guess next up, we got Lindsay from the Gorilla Rosin Press, fellow Canadian in the house. You want to give a little explanation as to how you got into this, Lindsay? Oh, you're muted. You're also on a phone.
I should mute myself.
Oh, you muted. Now you're unmuted. No, I can't hear you again. That's weird. I heard him say, of course, I muted myself. But now I don't hear him. Maybe the mic underneath is blocked. Sometimes I actually sent out an etiquette in regards to don't come in on a phone, mainly because it shakes the screen really bad. There's a lot of motion, and honestly, phones cause more problems than they don't. Usually if there's a technical difficulty, it'll be because you're in on a phone. Maybe try to figure that out. Come back in on a computer if you've got one. We definitely want to hear from you.
Okay, thanks.
Oh, there you are. No,
okay.
I hear you.
Okay.
Look at that. Dude, how close was that?
Whew. Yeah, sorry about that. Kind of got your link this morning. Yeah, thanks for great panel. I've sort of been following everybody here. I got into cannabis when I was 14 years old. Usually smoking joints or doing blocks. And I remember in college taking chemistry class, we'd grab some of the equipment, and 4 or 5 of us would go and make BHO at night. So I've always kind of delved into different things. My background is manufacturing, so when I first saw people making rosin. I think I saw it on Hash Church, an early episode of Hash Church, and then read about it in High Times. So I started following guys, Sasquatch and guys like Elysian. And I thought, nobody's doing this in Canada. Nobody's making presses. So I put my first press together with the Canadian Tire shop press and some plates I got off online. And then I thought, we can do better than this. The heat distribution and pressure distribution wasn't good enough. So I hired a few friends that are professional engineers, and we've been through 3 prototypes. We started at the beginning of 2017, and we launched in October with our final prototype, which is made with special alloy castings, and it has a very open concept because there's a bunch of things we want to add to our press in terms of technology. Right now we're working on, we source pressure transducers and electric motors for our power team hydraulic rams, and we're looking at automating it. But up to now, it's been a hand pump, which is, I still feel, the best way to press rosin, just because you get that feeling. You see it and you can just get on top of it when it needs to be, and I just feel you get the highest quality. But at Lift, people were asking about automating it and stuff, and we never used a PID. We started with a industrial controller from the beginning, so I can automate this thing. I envision robots feeding this thing in the future.
Rosin bots.
Yeah, that's sort of like the way I've always envisioned making a press, and that's why we made it open concept from day one, just so you can access it from front or back. That's sort of my story.
Nice, dude. Well, and where can they go look at the Gorilla Press? Do you have like a photo that you can put up on the screen or something? Or
yeah, I'll put it on the screen here in a little bit where my logo was. But you can, I'm evolved_cannabis on Instagram.
I think you sent me a picture even, actually. I did. You did send me pictures.
I think they sent you an email the other day with a picture of it.
So here, I'll just put it up real quick just so people can get an idea. It's nice to be able to see once what you're actually talking about. So
yeah, thanks a lot.
So here we go. This is the open concept. You can kind of see a little bit of it, actually. I might have to make it a little smaller. Oh, it doesn't fit any better. So there you go. You can put it at all the different angles, and it's got a good digital readout screen on there as well. Who'd have thought that it would start to get so like from a hair straightener to a t-shirt press to the hand pump Sasquatch M1 to the peer pressure dual button. It's pretty incredible what all of these all the different innovations that you guys are offering, and it's unique as well. Just like Eric was kind of saying, the manufacturers can kind of fix the problem for specific groups of people, because certain people will grow resin that might be attuned to them. It will be specific to them, especially if they live in a place like Colorado where the moisture content is super low. It's going to be a little bit different. And I want to get into that conversation once the rest of the panel has introduced themselves, which we'll get right to. But I do want to get into the discussion of rosin preservation. When you're making hundreds of grams at a time, the best way for us to go about preserving it in the different environments that we are, because preserving in Eugene, Oregon is not going to be the same as preserving in Denver, Colorado. Just a lot of moisture content that can change things up. It can help things butter out. I know bubble hash is that way for sure. So I guess I think Matt just turned his camera off, but I was going to get Matt from Solvent Zero to introduce himself. Are you there, Matt, or did you have to go? Oh,
I'm here, guys.
Perfect. There we go. So Matt is another person I met at Lyft, and he had a big commercial unit that struck my eye. I was like, oh, here's definitely an obvious thing that's gonna an obvious niche in the industry that will the whole industry is commercializing, regardless, even if of course you can take as many Sasquatches or peer pressures and go large. There's always going to be companies that would just rather get fewer units and go really large. So he had that industrial commercial version of a rosin press, and I'll let you introduce yourself, Matt, and tell us, how you came to be, how you came towards the cannabis, and then into extracts, and then into designing or becoming a part of Solvent Zero.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, first off, just want to say thank you for having me on. Props to all you guys, Sasquatch, Soil Grow, and Solventless Mine. Yeah, I've been following all of you guys for years. Basically, the inspiration came from some really good friends of mine who brought this product to me years ago. Inspiration came from them and came from all of you guys, really. Yeah, so a friend brought this product to me years ago. I grew up in BC, Canada, and so I've seen the industry, you know, and seen it evolve to what it is today, and it's still evolving. So basically, yeah, my friend brought this product to me years ago. I was extremely impressed with, you know, what it was, how premium it was, the terps. It was just better than anything I'd seen. And, you know, it was almost too good to be true. I couldn't really believe that it was just heat and pressure that was producing this type of product. I was blown away. So the only thing I just saw what it took for him to produce it and how long it took, the time it took to prepare. And so that's sort of how Solvent Zero was born. Years ago, we just decided to figure out a way to produce this stuff faster, easier, cheaper. We kind of saw what's happening with the regulations in Canada and how everything is going recreational. And basically, you know, CO2 oil was kind of taking over because it was one of the only methods that's approved by the government. And so that was sort of taking over with the commercial production of extracts here. And it's not my favorite. So, you know, I saw rosin really being the future, you know, of extracts if there was some way to produce it really quick. So we just decided to start building this machine. And that's basically how this all came about.
So when you say years ago, because Soil Grown was saying it was 2015 that he posted that on Instagram, like how many years ago could it have been? Like 2?
So I was showing rosin about three and a half years ago. And then it was about 2 years ago when we decided to, you know, come out with a machine that could do this on a commercial scale.
I often sometimes think when we have these memories, I don't know the history as well for rosin. I'm just kind of paying attention like a mild historian. But for my own water hash history, I know the history extremely well. And there's often people will be like, oh yeah, I was making water hash 25 years ago. I was like, no, probably like 18 years ago. No, it was like 25 years ago. I'm like, I don't think it's probably not, like it's possible, but just because really, I mean, rosin was an existing method that it was on IC Mag, but very, 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 very different from the pressure and the heat that Soil Grown when he released the rosin Kraken on Instagram in 2015. That shit right there, I can't believe it's only been that long, really. Like when I think of all the different like technologies that have come out of it and all the conversations, it's really quite something. It blows my mind. So I'd like to show your unit. Should I go on the website or should I?
Sure. Yeah, whatever you like.
Okay, yeah, because it's a big unit. It's let me see if I can.
Yeah, it's fully hydraulic. So everything is from a touch of the button. We did add a controlled down speed feature. So with a touch of a button, you can bring the plate down little by little, and it's very touchy control. So basically you can bring the plates down right till they hit the bag. You can give it a tiny little bit of pressure so they heat up, they expand a little bit, and then you can hit it with the full pressure, all from a touch of a button. This has been crucial. That feature is crucial for preventing the blowouts. And yeah, basically we're just trying to figure out how to, you know, get these out to all the LPs and just spread the rosin word and get it out there, because we see it being the future really of extracts.
It's a fucking Terminator machine, dude. When I just turned the video on and the sound came on, it was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It's pretty wild. I think it's great. I love the fact that it's such a young industry and that you guys all have such a strong place by just, you know, all of the different presses. You just have little different niches almost, you know, like I see great success in all of your futures as long as you know, maintain innovation, follow your passion, and obviously try to make it so even the commercial people can produce the highest quality as possible, you know, to really be able to control the pressure and the heat and the time. That seems to be the trio for rosin that makes a great product. So it's I'm sure a lot of people are going to be squishing a lot of product after this. I do, once we finish up with Matt and Joel from Sasquatch, which are next up to bat, I'd like to get into a good conversation where we actually start talking about methods that we make. You know, like I just wanted you guys to be able to all do introductions, introduce your Instagrams and your companies and whatnot, so people had kind of an idea where each of you were coming from, and then we could get into a really great discussion. We've only been going for an hour and 17 minutes, so we still have time for a really great rosin conversation. And in the meantime, thank you, Matt from Solvent Zero, for sharing that with us. And we'll move right over to Sir Joel and Sir Matt in the funky Sasquatch rosin office. What's up, boys? Unmute yourselves. I muted everyone. I'm just like, oh, there we go. What's up? Well, welcome.
How is everybody?
Good. Good. It's a long time coming to do Hash Church 2.0, the past, present, and future of rosin. So right now we're in the present of rosin, and you guys are very much a part of the present of rosin. So tell us how Solvent or Sasquatch Rosin Press came to be, and how you guys found your passion in producing these presses.
Pretty much, I guess it was after Hash Church, really, when Soil Grown was on there. Soil Grown's our cousin. After that, my brother had, you know, he had introduced me to the YouTube channel. I was like, holy shit, what's he doing? You know, I didn't even know he was doing it. I was honestly in the hills growing weed. I did that for 6-7 years. I was making BHO, to be honest. I was really, really good at making BHO, and I had a passion oil itself in any fashion. I was like, fuck yeah, let's do this, make it happen. And so I just got tired of growing, really, and kind of hit up my cousin Joel here. He's kind of like an engineer type, did it well, then good at, you know, building things, all this stuff. Like, I'm semi good at it, but didn't do it for a living. Like I said, I grew weed. So when I contacted Joel, he was like, fuck yeah, let's do this. I was like, we need to build a press that can actually.
Sorry, guys. Joel's mic's not coming through.
Probably got to speak up louder.
No, it wasn't coming through almost at all, unless you can hold it right up to your mouth for a second and do a test.
Is that better?
Oh, that works totally, actually.
All right. I think it might have been flipped around. I don't know.
It's the beard.
What I was saying was, well, I had almost died at work the week before at a wastewater plant. And we had already talked about, I mean, obviously Phil's our cousin. He had showed us rosin, blew my mind. I could never smoke BHO at all. It gave me kind of like a lung spasm every time I smoked it. So it didn't ever really work for me. And I was telling everybody they're poisoning themselves, don't smoke BHO, saying all this stuff. Rosin literally changed everybody's life. I'm sure on this panel in one way. I think, you know, big ups to Phil. Anybody who's down to innovate, you know, put that time in, do the R&D. You know, a lot of things happen by accident, you know, but I don't think there's ever not a reason why they happened in that way, you know. As far as the Sasquatch started, I think a combination of that being fed up and me being fed up with what we were doing. Was over the Christmas break. I believe we built a couple presses. I think all we had was a grinder and
2015.
And they worked hella good, and we were
Like I literally
further.
I tore out my in my garage. Big farm actually. Tore out the whole thing and turned it into like a temporary mini little metal shop. Little shitty tools I had laying around, and we ended up building 20 presses there. Sold them all at the first High Time show that we ever did. And then after, like, holy shit, like we need to build 50 or 200 of these things in this tiny little garage. From there, we instantly got a big place and just started building hundreds of them and teaching everybody how to press, an ounce at a time, 2 ounces at a time, and get production done. Because at first, no one was really pressing ounces or pressing even a quarter ounce, like it was really small scale stuff. D-nail presses and t-shirt presses, like stuff like that. Maybe a couple presses with really, really tiny plates to press small amounts of hash, maybe like a gram or two at a time. So we were like, fuck, we need to press, ounces, 2, 3 ounces, 4 ounces now. Really, with the 2.5, you can get work done super, super fast. Depending on what you're not afraid to do. It's a nice bud. You gonna squish that?
It's a little bit of where is my bike?
Nice.
Yeah, dude.
I gotta come back out to Canada for some.
Yeah, you do. The last time you were here, we squished a bunch of this and got like 29 point something% return.
Yeah, it was tight. That was fun.
Absolutely.
Pretty much born off of me being tired of growing weed and Joel being fed up with work, and the passion for wanting to be healthier. Really, honestly, I stopped eating meat. I stopped doing all sorts of shit that I was doing, and started focusing more on a health type craze and like being nice to my body. So Rosin really clicked in my head, like, yes, like we need to tell the world, the whole entire world needs to know. So for the last 2.5 years, it's been my mission, my life's mission, to run around and tell everybody I've seen and know about rosin, not to smoke BHO. And, I've had personal friends blow themselves up, burn their houses down. Me personally, it never happened to me, but I made that shit for 6 to 7 years. Knows how much damage I did to my body, So just be safe. Really, that's what our whole thing is, to be safe and healthy.
Yeah, well, I mean, the most dangerous thing you can do with one of these presses is drop it on your foot. As long as you avoid doing that, you should be good.
Yeah, don't be me. Bro, break your big toe.
Oh my God, I remember that. Holy shit. These guys came out, their whole crew came out to Jamaica last year for Bob Marley's birthday. We had a booth with our Jamaican company, Cannabinoid Research and Development, and Sasquatch was there with us. We had a press. We ended up dabbing out a bunch of the Marleys. We met the prime minister of the country. It was a pretty sweet experience, all in all. I'm gonna actually try and go at the end of the month, at the beginning of February for this year again. Yeah, I just can't miss it, dude. It's too special.
Yeah, we just moved into our new shop and stuff, and we're doing that Good Vibes charity event. I don't know if you into that at all.
Yeah. Tell everyone about the Good Vibes charity event.
Basically, I just had an idea. I have a couple of friends that have autistic children, and I've recently become pretty good friends with Jinx Proof Genetics. And obviously, he runs Northwest Families for Autism, has an autistic child himself. So I figured, we need to give back to the community and kind of show the community that our community is, doing good things, and we want to provide and be a part. We want to mix, our community with your community and be one together and not judge each other or anything, So kind of just, and also want to, obviously raise money for children, and families in need. I'm not doing it to make profits or anything. It's all crowdfunded, and we're gonna have a great time. Rosin competition, USA squash off. There's a whole bunch of things going on. I could go on forever, but yeah, February 3rd at the old Sasquatch factory.
Awesome, dude, for sure. I'll put the link up in the comment section of the YouTube video once it gets uploaded as well, because that's just a good thing. Obviously, we should be letting people know about that.
You can't make it. We're accepting donations just because. We'd love to raise almost 20 grand to donate. And we're already at like almost $12,000. So I'm pretty sure that we're gonna get there. We still got a couple more weeks, and then at the show we're gonna have silent auctions and all sorts of stuff to raise more money. So it would be awesome for anyone who can come to come. But yeah.
Awesome, dude. You're gonna do a silent auction, did you say?
Yeah, like basically anyone who wants to put anything on the table.
Yeah, I'll send some stuff down, dude, for sure.
That'd be cool. Yeah, put a base price of what you think it's worth or what you think it should get, and then.
Well, you always have to remind people. You always have to remind people when it's an auction that you're not actually trying to get it for cheaper than it costs. You want to pay more than what it costs because you're raising money for autistic children.
Exactly.
Like trying to grind the price down. It's like
we also have speakers coming out to talk about how cannabis use is helping autistic children.
Very
kind of a trip. The Autism Society of San Diego, been a company for 52 plus years. They've also used cannabis. They use cannabis on their patients as well. And I tripped out because the owner or whatever, I've been in contact with her, and she's like, "Yeah, we use cannabis." And like I was like, "Oh well," I thought I was going to offend you by even saying our show was based around it. You know,
it's changed a lot.
It's really cool. It's really cool to see how much it's changed. And yeah, sure.
So, what's the link where they can go and donate?
I could put it up in the thing right here. It's like a really long link.
Yeah, put it in the chat, and then I'll copy and paste it into the other chat.
My Instagram bio as well.
You know how lazy people are. They want the link right now. We got to deliver that shit, dude.
Right.
So yeah, that's everyone that's gone through. We've started with Soil Grown, and we went through the whole list of everyone. So I think really we've got 814 people watching live right now, and now we're into the show. And I guess it's really about the present, and it's all about making rosin and preserving rosin and finding the best material that you can. So let's start at the start. Obviously, your tools and the quality of material that you're going to find. Anyone want to kind of go off on how they went about finding the quality tool as well as the quality material? Not always so easy.
Links up.
Oh, the link. Okay, great. Here, I'll put that.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
Keep up the good work, too. I want to let all the other rosin press companies know, like, it's awesome to see the innovation. You know, at first, no one was around. You know, we were the first ones out there really teaching people. I think there was, like, the Rosin Technologies press that was out. Awesome little press, the D-Nail press, but, like, they weren't teaching people. And that was, like, one thing I saw was, like, whoa, are they not allowed to press at shows? Or we just didn't really care. We just went out there and we just started pressing. We didn't even think about the rules at all. Like, we're just like, let's teach everybody like everything, you know. But yeah, it's awesome to see the innovation and growth, you know, for sure. I can't wait to see what the future is.
Well, it's it's the people who decide to say, let's just teach everything that really make it so a bunch more people can come, innovate, stand on the shoulders of those giants and take it to that next level. And if you don't kind of share for people to innovate, I mean, it's exactly how Bubble Bags was started. If I didn't teach people how to use those bags, well, I was not going to be selling any bags, especially because you think rosin tripped people out. People used to laugh in my face about water hash.
Washing the weed.
They thought it was the most ridiculous thing that you could possibly do. Putting beautiful herb into water and ice back in like 1998, 1999. I'm telling you, like this is a time where people threw away trim by the metric ton. Like literally, this was the sound of trim getting dumped. Beep, beep, beep. Literally, the giant truck backing up. I'd be like, "Oh, what did you do with that metric ton of trim that you had?" It's like, "Oh, I got rid of it, man. I threw that shit out." And as I started the Bubble Bag company, that shit changed in a hurry because people realized these mountains of trim were like. They were just such an incredible value, especially if you hit it with some good trim, not just some swaggy subpar material. And I'll say some of the first full melt I ever made was made from trim, really tight to the bud trim that produced, 5- and 6-star quality bubble hash that melted into a liquid and looked like stained glass window when I held it up to the sun. It's a good thing, that's for sure. So how do you guys go about finding your good material, solventless bud and 2 turnt and honey butter?
Easiest solution would be to grow it yourself, but that's not always an option. So, you know, you just got to be in the loop. You got to know the right people and know where your stuff comes from. It's not really like a, you know, what am I going to find this week kind of thing. It's more like, you know, you have a few people that you want to just stay in contact with and see if they'll help you out.
But it even starts before that in a sense, because some people really, what if you don't know what quality herb even is? I mean, for me, I always said the bags were the word of God. Run it through the bags, and if it comes out looking like this, then you have incredible quality material. Because I just noticed most people, their ability to perceive was below that level of being able to understand that this was great or like I just saw a lot of people, I don't know if it was a cognitive dissonance or if they had just never really seen what I was considering quality, they would think like a 3-star back in the day was good, and everyone's bubble. Like for me, my company would have been way more successful if more people grew great herb. I'll say that much. Yeah, absolutely.
I used to run around with a trim bin, a hair straightener, and a couple rosin bags, and I would, you know, if I was going to go look at some material, this was just, you know, last winter, and I would shake a little out and press it right there on the spot, and that was one way to tell. But what I realized eventually was there's not much good material out there. If you're putting yourself at the mercy of what you can find at the time, you know, you're probably not going to get above a 3-4 star end product.
True enough. I would add to that. Go ahead.
You know, you're probably not going to get above.
Oh, he's got the YouTube video on. I'll just mute him. What I was going to say in regards to that was that I used to do a similar thing. I wasn't really testing for the quality of the resin. For me, back in the day, I had to test for sulfur, because everyone in the Pacific Northwest grows powdery mildew like you wouldn't fucking believe. And so they would eventually, especially in the 90s, it's a lot better now that we live in a concentrate world, but they would use sulfur burners. And I know that people are like, oh, use a sulfur burner in veg and it's fine. Well, I've macro photographed many of veg plants, and I can promise you that trichomes are already on the plant from the first set of 2 true leaves, not the cotyledon, the round ones, but the next set, which is the epicotyl, the first 2 true set of leaves that come out of a seedling. I have photographed with my macro camera trichomes present on those leaves. So if you're worried about those oleoresins becoming contaminated with sulfur, which is what happens when you use a sulfur burner, then you should be worried about it even in vegetative. So I was religious about not wanting it in my product. So what I would do is I'd take a small pinch of material, and with a lighter, I would light the end of it, close my eyes, and just hold the smoke under my nose gently. And if it smelled anything like a pack of matches or a single burnt match, that shit was like gone. Because I'll tell you, not only would it contaminate your resin and make your resin literally taste like matches, it would also fuck up your bags, which, you know, they're not cheap. They're an expensive tool. And if you don't want to be soaking them with this sulfur material that just never seems to disappear.
I got a little something on what you said about how do we go about finding good material.
Yeah.
Pretty much working with growers that listen and actually give a shit about what they're doing, because a lot of growers have it in their mind that they already know that they're growing the best, they're doing the best. But when you wash their stuff or you squish their stuff, the results don't show that. You know what I mean? Like, you'll get flour that looks really frosty. Frosty is all hell. But then you try to squish it, and then you get 8%, 11% back. And now you got to tell the grower, yo, I can't press the rest of this, because if I do, it's worth less than the ganja sitting here in front of me. Do you want to take that loss? Sometimes they'll say, yeah, they want it just for head stash. But still, I got to sit here now and go through the agony of pressing this shit that's giving me nothing. And when you talk to the grower, they don't want to hear that their bud's not good. So I feel like the good material comes with the growers that actually listen to the extractors or the hash makers, because we do know resin. We understand dry. We understand char. We understand melt. We understand lots of things that they don't necessarily understand. They just understand the plant and not really the resin. Whereas when we're extracting, we get a whole different sight from a whole different view. You know, we're actually seeing just the resin just by itself. So like if it's a grower's growing in hotter, you know, climates, he might have thicker wax membranes and have charry ass hash. If a guy's growing in cooler climates, he might have the meltiest shit ever. You know what I mean? There's all kinds of shit that, decides that. I'm not saying it's one or the other. It's not just hot, cold. It's the environment. It's the nutrients. It's everything that goes into the plant. But there are a difference between growers who grow dry resin and growers that grow the grease. And when you go to put it into your press to make rosin, you don't press them the same. And if you do, you're just not doing it right, in my opinion, because the greases, you can drop the temp and you can get that shit to flow. But the dry resins, the shit that's like the Tangies, the Blue Dream, there's certain varieties that when you put them in there and you try to press them low, they can't even rosin out of the bag. You're literally just building up a butter just chunk around the bag. And then your percentages drop like a used condom. You're looking at like, it could have been 80%, but now it's like 40% because you got nothing out of it. But now you got to explain to the grower, the money has to go up or down. You know how people do their pricing. It's all on what the yield is compared to what the herb would have sold for. So then you have to explain to the grower, like, as long as the grower is willing to like listen to you and hear you out on everything that you're saying, then you're going to have the greatest material you can find. But the stubborn guys, they're always going to give you the mids. Always.
Ain't that the truth? The stubborn guys got stuck with the mids. Don't get stuck with mids. Listen to your extractor. I see the exact same relationship, to be honest, in a lot of the rosin press companies where you have a ganja guy and you have a machinist who also is into ganja, but maybe didn't spend the last 10 or 20 years like flipping packs or, growing herb or whatever. It's sort of like there's these symbiotic relationships that obviously happen between a grower and an extractor, between a machinist and a puffer. How else are you going to know if you're making a great material? You might be the greatest machinist on the planet, but if you don't have that sort of, we got to come up with a name for it too. I want it to be like the hashish or oil sommelier, almost like the equivalent of a wine sommelier, but in the cannabis world. I don't know the term for it myself, but I'm sure now that we've mentioned it, someone will come up with it and it'll be patented and copyrighted before the end of the day. But it's something that should exist. I think that we all know that there's levels to this shit, and there's always certain people that, once again, I don't know if they have a stronger olfactory or if they're able to pay more attention to what's going on with all of their senses while they're smelling and inhaling and being affected by these different terpenes and cannabinoid profiles. But it seems like there's certain people that just take it to that next level, and those people, coincidentally enough, always have a super quality product in their stash. Speaking of stash, I think it might be time for a little rip. I got this new nail recently, the Mr. Hotbox. It's kind of fun. Thing's beefcake. Gonna be heats up in a minute, 1 minute. How about that for a fast electric nail? And I'm going to hit a little maple butter. They were supposed to come in today. I'm not sure what happened. I'll have to give them a hit on the old messenger. I'm going to hit some Holy Grail dry sift rosin. That's what I'm going to hit today. As you can see, I've been hitting it pretty hard already. So this would be the time now, if you have your rig, to join Reverend Bubbleman for a... I'm just joking. Don't ask how it even became hash church, the word church, how that became a part of it. I don't even know, but it sure has stuck in the last 3.5 years that we've been doing this show. And yeah, 889 people, almost 900 people in live, wanting to hear from all of you guys and how you go about making your product. I liked when Eric was talking about making sure that the pressure isn't too great. And I think it was Eric, actually, it might've been Honey Butter, in cooking the parchment, almost the cooked parchment look, and how being able to pull that back. Like, these are all just little sort of clues that tell you that, yeah, if you're continually cooking the parchment and you're pulling that shit out and it's all cracked and like cooked away, you need to pull back hard.
I've noticed that if you're over pressing, the outline of the bag will straight cut the parchment where the press is, where the plate is in contact with it, and that's definitely a sure sign that you're slamming it down too far.
I've noticed also, like when you're folding your pouches, you want to make a nice even flap if you do fold it, because otherwise, if you just have like half of a flap, that pressure, even though it's the smallest amount of material, it still applies more pressure to that center point, which that'll break into the parchment, or you don't get an even press. I mean, it doesn't seem like much, but it really is important, especially when you're dealing with hash pressing.
It's like the princess and the pea.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you want to never underfold a bag either, because that's what will help lead with blowouts. If you overfold, I'd rather do that and sacrifice a tiny bit of yield, especially with hash, because it's not like it really matters that much at that point, especially if you're going for quality.
Yeah,
and definitely double bagging helps a lot.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to ever underfold a bag. Just opens right the fuck up.
It happens though. That shit sucks.
It does, man. That's why I try to only put enough in to make sure the fold's good enough. I mean, you can stack bags though too, as long as you press slow enough. If you don't go fast enough, you can stack bags too.
Yeah. I remember back when I was packing. I was double packing bags, so I'd fold a pouch and I'd put a pouch inside of a pouch because of all the blowouts. And then it's just like I realized over just fuck that other screen. You're using excess material, excess paper cost or whatever you want to call it, and just with the one screen and a little bit of patience and playing with that heat and timing, it's just no need to worry. You just get it to flow out like butter.
Exactly, bro. 100% on that.
It's why I kind of like the hand press as well. Like what Lindsay was mentioning earlier. What I feel is that it's intuitive. I have this intuitive press when I hand press. Go ahead, honey. Looked like you wanted to talk.
Oh no, sorry.
No, I mean I don't use the hand press. I played with it a lot, and I understand how people really feel it when pressing the hash and all, but for me, I really dial it in on the compressor and just dialing down the pressure. Like for instance, I can get the press down with the foot pump down to just on the compressor down to 5 psi before it shuts out and does nothing. But just when I'm doing water hash or anything, I usually bring the pressure down to like 30 psi, which allows me to slowly bring the blocks down. I can control at the speed that it's dropping, and the increments of how far it comes down on the pouch, because it gets real critical at that point. I mean, it's just a matter of a couple centimeters and you have a blowout. So I really feel it personally with the foot pump and just dialing it on the compressor. But I mean, that's just how I've learned. So yeah, I think it's all on however you learn it and just learning the tools of the trade.
Yeah, the compressor kind of scares me, honestly. Like, sometimes the hash is so greasy that, like, if I just let the handle go on the fucking hand, if I just let that handle go, like, sometimes I'll have to crank it really low to the floor so that I don't take the risk of, like, letting the handle go and then the weight of the handle dropping and just, I mean, I've had some disasters, man. I mean, you got to have some mad skills over there, bro. You got to teach me the way.
No, that's it, dude. It's just a matter of, messing up. You mess up and you realize what you did and you figure out how to correct it. And the fact is that's what I've learned on, and it's what I like. And, I've played with the hand press, but I feel like I'm just starting back in the beginning with it. And when it comes to the foot pump, I feel full control on it, whether I'm cranking it up to 90 PSI and I'm going full speed on the bag or with flour, or whether I'm doing bubble hash and just dialing in my, the PSI and the speed that the block comes down on it. It's just, I've done it that way and that's how I feel it. So I think it's just making those mistakes is a good thing, because the more you mess up, the more you understand. Unless you're messing up on the same exact thing every time, then that's just stupid, You're not learning shit.
That's the difference between a costly mistake and a valuable lesson, which are exactly the same experience. It's just how you decide to perceive them. How fucked up is that?
Yeah,
100%.
I find that the 2-speed hand pump really makes a big difference in terms of what you can feel.
I had to look at mine for a second.
It's better for sure. I agree. 2-speed.
Yeah, I'm just over here using that yellow handle.
Tom disagrees.
Everyone's on these hand pumps. I feel like a caveman with my foot pump still.
I'm with solid ground. I use the foot pump still, and I like it a lot. Whenever I start to see a blowout happen, it's nice because I can just pop the release immediately, and I don't got to worry about it blowing out all the way. I've stopped a lot of blowouts that way, but I've also blown out more bags than you can believe. I've wasted so much damn money. It pisses me off.
Oh yeah.
I've learned more lessons that way too, like you said.
Right.
But
yeah, for me,
pedals the way I go. It's easy to really get the.
Yeah, I think I mean with the foot pedal, I mean it's just necessary on dialing in your PSI, which controls the speed of the blocks, and I mean just watching the bag. So having a light directed on those blocks and the bag that you're pressing, I mean you really get to see the oil doing its thing. You know, you watch it start to come out and spread through the bag, and then you know just kind of like. Depending on the quality of hash, or I mean, this is more for hash, especially like flour's a little bit easier. You never really have blowouts. I mean, if you do, just crank your PSI down a little. I mean, you're obviously pressing too much pressure. But as for hash, I mean, dialing it in, you're slowing down your blocks. You can really feel the increments as it goes through with each drop. And depending on the quality of hash that you're pressing, that's what you really need to understand is, you know, when you're pressing your 6 stars and your 5 stars, that shit's pure oil almost. I mean, 6 stars, there's very little contaminant. You're pressing 90% in up returns. You know, with your 5 stars, you're getting 80% in up returns. So I mean, it's a little hard to have a blowout, but then again, I mean, it's all about patience and watching that bag, watching the flow, you know, understanding what you're pressing. If you're pressing something with a lot more contaminant, you need to understand that you can't apply as much pressure because eventually you're going to get to a point where all that contaminant is maxed out in the bag, and now you're just pressing that out. So you're going to get blowouts with that, not from pressing too quick, but from pressing with too much pressure.
Is everybody here using bags? I know Elysian likes the Chemex wrap. I'm just wondering if anybody else has anything out there different.
Just bags.
I use bags and not bags, and I use a hand pump and a foot pump with a air compressor. So I have a couple of them set up and just have variety available to me, and it's
yeah. With flour, I like a good pre-press and no bags sometimes.
Yeah, I used to press with no bags, just for production and scaling up, and you know, especially with the way the industry is going out here in Southern California, just California particularly. I just feel like learning how to scale things on a mass level and maintain quality is going to be key. And when it comes to, you know, pressing without a screen and then cleaning it up afterwards, it's not a bad idea. But the fact is you don't get to reduce the mass that you're pressing, and you know, you're taking up more space with that. And I feel like even to a certain point, when you're pressing without a screen, you have that material that's still absorbing and maintaining a certain amount of oil because you're not reducing the amount of space that it's taking.
Right. Yeah. The packing.
That makes sense.
So yeah, someone asked, how do I know when I'm getting lipids and wax in my rosin?
Whenever you're pressing flour rosin, basically.
Yeah.
But you shouldn't give a fuck because you more than likely smoke flour anyway. So why give a shit if it's a little bit of rosin?
Yep.
Agreed.
I think a steak's good with a little bit of fat on it.
And lipids and waxes are a lot more dangerous when you're smoking something that's been made with a non-polar solvent like BHO, which removes those sort of natural bronchial dilators, the things that sort of protect us. I guess, what did Jim Frere call them? I wish I could remember the name. Allocation points? No. Some type of point in the lungs that cannabis protects our lungs from these things. But if you use a non-polar solvent, you leave behind the polar and semi-polar components. And in those components are the things that protect you from things like fats and lipids getting deeper into your lungs than they should get. I didn't really explain it as well as I probably could have had I been thinking about it a bit, but it's something to look into. Fats and lipids, definitely a lot more of a problem when you're using a non-polar solvent. When you're extracting like hash or oil or smoking bud, you know, the built-in safety mechanism is that the bud already contains these nucleation points, these components that become nucleation points in the lungs, and they sort of stop things from getting deeper into our lungs than are supposed to. It's why it's not a very good idea to smoke tobacco with cannabis. Cannabis being an expectorant, it allows the lungs to open up, whereas the tobacco, the lungs want to close up. You don't want tobacco to get deep into your lungs. Cannabis can help that, and it's not ideal. So,
as for fats and lipids as well, like you can notice. I mean, I feel like that's more of a future talk as far as fats and lipids and rosin, because I mean, no one's really at the point of figuring out how to extract them, as far as I know, or separate them. But one thing that you can observe when pressing is a lot of flower rosins, and they seem to have more fats and lipids. You'll notice it when you smoke them. You need to hit it a little cooler, otherwise you get more of that char. Not quite char, but more, you know, it burns, chars up. It does char up. So where was I going with that? Live rosin, for instance, or water hash, or even just hash rosin in particular, you'll notice has a cleaner burn. You can hit it a little hotter. It's usually better in clarity. Some flower rosins, though, like a lot of OGs that I run into, or more of your sappy consistencies, tend to be able to be more resistant to heat, or not resistant heat, but less fats and lipids as far as you can observe on the burn. And comparing, like, as far as dabbing and smoking them, they seem to have less fats and lipids, because I feel like the fats and lipids are obviously what's responsible for that undesirable taste when you're hitting it a little bit too hot. And you'll notice you can hit live rosin hotter than you can flower rosin, and for the most part.
Yeah, there's like almost no carbon footprint left on the nail when you dab like hash rosins. And when you burn off a nail, like, not everybody has a super clean nail. Some of us aren't scared. You know, we'll burn a little bit off. But you actually see the whole story when you take a dab and it's wet on the nail, and then you burn it off with a fucking torch. Hash rosin normally will just puddle a little bit, turn a little bit black, and burn off, gone. Flower rosin likes to really get black. I mean, you almost see lift off the nail sometimes of the carbon burning and flaking off. And the same with BHO. If you take a dab of that sauce and you burn that excess shit off your nail, it leaves the exact same residuals most of the time as flower rosin. But hash rosin, I've never really seen too much residuals left behind.
Nah, and I agree 100% with that. I mean, especially a lot of these guys with their heady glass and their expensive ass quartz and all that, you'll notice that they're real picky about what's being dabbed on their nails. They don't like flower rosin to be dabbed out on it. They notice they haven't. You'll notice some people have the specific nail just to smoke rosin, but I mean, that's really what it is. It's the fats and lipids, and you'll notice that the flower rosin tends to do it more. And I would say that the majority of flower rosin out there being pressed is gonna have that taste for the most part, and is responsible for the reason why there's a lot of people out there that have rosin as a bad taste in their mouth, because majority of people don't understand quality control. They don't have the eye, and they don't have the ability to test it, to see the yields, to see the quality of the resin, or the rosin, and you know, taste it, you know, experience it, and understand every part of it to you know, understand all the important factors of what's important in the quality of the flowers that you're pressing. You know, I think it really comes to working close with growers and people that are open-minded and understanding, you know, that we're extracting the plants, we actually get to see the resin. I'm starting to get lost with what I was talking about.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I'd like to add in. Oh, good. I'd like to add in that grower extractor relationship is something that's kind of it's kind of new. You know, only some people have been doing it on purpose for a while, and now that, you know, realizing that that's the cornerstone of your quality, that I think growers are starting to listen more, and I think they're really going to start listening more, because it's going to be a matter of survival in this new market. You know, if they want to do something that works, they need to pay attention to, you know, to their extractor, to their vessel that gets their product to the market.
I agree, especially, you know, for my own brand, I'm not going to put my name on anything that's not the highest of quality. So at that point, I really have to have a lot to say about how the grow is being grown, and, you know, the cultivars that are being used and the people that are in the room. It's not really just a relationship that's completely cut off, that you show up and you're like, yeah, I'm just going to process whatever's in there. It's like, no. There's levels to this shit. You need to, like, if you have something that's worth processing, then we can talk about a relationship. But before that, who wants to waste their time unless you haven't learned yet? And then it's not a waste of time. But once you've learned, it quickly becomes aware to you that, you know, that processing the wrong cultivars or the poorly grown right cultivars is not worth your time. And so if you can pass that message on to the grower, don't grow poor cultivars that aren't going to express themselves even if you grow them perfectly, and grow hash producing cultivars that will allow us to get a yield and allow our relationship to you know, work out for everyone rather than no one. Because water hash has been a tight one for years. Processing water hash in particular. Rosin, much different, especially when you get a cultivar like the bike, the Where Is My Bike, which we should welcome Neil and John into the room there. Maple butter in the house.
What's up, guys? How you doing?
How's it going, everybody?
Yeah, dude. I was gonna press a little Where's My Bike here in a little bit.
Nice.
What's up, guys? Everybody on the panel, thanks for inviting us. And yeah, we feel very
honored to be invited on a panel of such a high caliber.
Yeah, and it's funny you guys are talking about like the grower and extractor relationship, because that's pretty much how me and John got together. I mean, I was mostly more the grower and he was more the extractor, and you know, we really clicked when Rosin came together a couple years ago when we first heard it on Hash Church. So very honored to be here today.
Awesome. Well, why don't you guys give your introduction, how you guys got into, you know, producing and processing and all of that, and how you were led into producing Canadian artesian rosin.
Well, basically, like most of the people on the panel, we started with BHO until sort of got introduced to the rosin scene, and started with not so much success, like with a hair straightener, basically pressing whatever we could find. And once we realized that, like you said, the quality control, when you can control everything from seed to oil, then we had a lot of success squishing a lot of our own flowers. And then it was more finding cultivars that had specific terpene profiles that matched what we were looking for. So basically, it's been you know, a journey to find certain genetics that we've been working with, and a lot of the things we've had to produce from ourselves. They're not necessarily cuts that are commercially passed around. And in our area, there's not too much of a variety going around. Everybody seems to go for the more how much can I get and how fast can I get is sort of a mentality. So
yeah, we're growing more like 12-week strains or 13-week strains and things like that, which again is not the typical you know, yielders around here. So and we're not really looking at flower production, we're more looking at resin production. So we have certain, you know, cultivars that are producing nearly 30% returns on rosin and things like that. So yeah, that's mostly it. Genetics and pressing.
Yeah, well, that's definitely what attracted me to you guys. I'm loving the Where Is My Bike. I get damn near 30% every time I press it. I'm pressing a nugget out right now, actually. And I smoke a ton of the rosin that you guys make, so I'm always stoked on that.
Awesome. I'm glad you're loving it, man.
Thanks, man. Thanks a lot.
Absolutely. So it's just, it is such an incredible thing to just be able to squish a bud and get dabs. Like that was some like, that was the equivalent in bubble bags to the pulling of the 73 bag for the first time ever. Anyone ever seen it? It's like you pull out that yellow bag and everyone's eyebrows would go up.
Yeah.
And seeing oil squish out of a bud is unbelievable.
Yeah, it's anyways, it was definitely a good genetic to have. That Where's My Bike? Definitely a keeper.
It's just one that has like a really intense terpene profile as well, that we find that really follows through in a rosin, whereas a lot of these strains, it depends. A lot of the cushes and stuff we find around here are super temperamental when you're using heat, like a lot of guys were explaining before there. So We find the bike is really like, it's loud, 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 and it almost butters right away. Oh, there you go.
It definitely buttered right away. So that again.
Does everyone know they're using parchment? I know some people like the PTFE, and then there's the oil slick silicon paper.
Yeah, we're using parchment.
Parchment.
Yeah, I don't like the PTFE. I mean, you can put the PTFE inside of a piece of parchment paper, but it likes to ripple and make it hard for collection as far as like pressing on a smaller scale and like flower rods and things like that. I mean, if you're doing more like directional flow and stuff like that, I mean, maybe, but just overall, parchment seems to be the best thing for me.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that PTFE stuff kind of attracts a lot of things like hair, dust, anything that's in your environment likes to stick to that stuff. So I don't really like it, to be honest.
Yeah, it's ultra sticky.
I've tried just about everything. I have a pretty open mind to things, and I've definitely found parchment paper to be overall the easiest thing to work with. I haven't noticed any kind of parchment contaminant in any rosin that I've ever made. So
I'd say
again, I haven't tested it.
I'd say definitely be easy on the pressure. I mean, you don't want to be blowing out your parchment and having those, those pouch and grit. Like, if you're seeing your pouch pressing into the parchment, which someone was discussing earlier, you're definitely pressing too hard. I mean, lower your pressure. Don't click down so many times. And I mean, test your yields. I mean, your yields are going to be the same. A lot of people like to just give it its all, thinking they're getting every last drop of oil out, without doing any experimentation or recording anything and understanding that, a little bit less pressure, a little less time does the same exact thing.
Yeah,
so it's just finding that sweet spot.
Yeah, that last bit that comes out, I believe, is much higher in fats and lipids than the initial bit that comes out too. So using that extra pressure to keep pressing it until it turns brown isn't something that I suggest.
That's why I like the hand pump, just because you get the feel for it. Ultimately, I'd like to have one hand pump set up and then one electric pump going. And then once you dial it in, then you just produce on your electric. But to me, the artist in the craft comes out of the hand pump.
Yeah, I've used them both. You could become pretty artistic with that foot pedal too. It just depends on whether you want to use your hand or your foot for that connection. So it's
I definitely prefer the hand pump when I'm pressing hash, and foot pump when I'm pressing flour, or even the electric pump pressing flour. But they all get the job done. Certainly pressed a lot with the hand pump and the foot pump, and it's hard to say I like one over the other. It just depends on what you're doing.
I mean, you definitely get more feel from the hand pump, but if you're doing high production or something like that, it seems like having some kind of automatic system might actually be a lot better.
Yeah.
Yeah, trying to squish a pound of hash with a hand pump would suck ass. I don't know what the fuck I would do with that.
Yeah. No, I just meant like having both, so you could dial it in with the hand pump and then just set your electric up to repeat that.
Absolutely.
Sorry, go ahead.
Actually, like ramping rates and determining just basically generating data to determine how quickly you can actually ramp based on the size of filter that you actually have. Something that I've been working on recently, but you end up finding that each filter has a different ramping rate essentially. And so you'll find obviously that with some filters you can actually increase like your ramp at a rate of, I don't know, something like 300 to actually it would be more like about 1500 psi every minute, or you could even like decrease it down to as low as like 800 psi every minute, but it all really depends on the size of the filter that you actually have.
Yeah, I mean, not everyone understands that the pressure from the
the press is actually determined by the size of the bag.
Exactly.
A lot of people think I got a 25-ton press, that's what I'm doing every time, but it depends on the size of the bag you're using.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and even for like hash and stuff like that, the quality of the hash also depends on how much, you know, and I've definitely kept logs of all of that too. I keep a log of the quality and how much hash I can put in each bag. And I've been trying to make some kind of thing myself with that. I also like to log everything in a book of every press I do with the temperatures and returns and stuff like that. And even if there's a blowout or something, to make sure to log that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's super important.
Go ahead.
Yeah. We put a little calculator on our touch screen that we put the bag size in, the number of bags you're using, and it calculates the exact pressure on the bag or where to bring your pump to. And vice versa, if you do an ice press and you see where you brought your pump gauge to, you can calculate what the pressure on the bag was so that you can do that every time.
Yeah, with from experimenting, you know, you find your metrics, you find your, you know, you find out, like, you know, where your consistencies are, and then from there you can scale with different material, different temperatures, different amounts in the bag, and it's just kind of dialing it in. I'm personally, I'm all by feel. I don't have any adjustment on my foot pump or any gauge. I've used just out of the box from there, and that's been my baseline for everything I've experimented with.
Very cool. Yeah, it's definitely something to think about. Where that pressure is coming down on top of your screen is where, you know, that's what you're thinking of. Blowouts is definitely a big problem. I think also a big problem is potentially that a lot of the screen that's being used is maybe not rated for pressure or for heat.
Yeah.
Yes.
We just went through making our own bags, and just trying to find the proper material was a chore in itself. You know, it took a few months, especially in Canada. I mean, the bags we're using right now come out of Italy. It's a polyester monofilament coming out of Italy, and I'm sure I can do cheaper, but that's just, to me, it was just the best bag. It doesn't seem to stretch.
I bet you can't do cheaper, because honestly, I've been doing this screen for a long time that's both heat and pressure rated.
Yeah,
it's expensive stuff, and they don't knock it off in China well at all. And the reason why I've always used it is because it's heat stamped so that it won't ever lose its hold. If it goes in and out of water many times, it doesn't lose the actual micron diameter of the hole. It keeps that, whereas like some silk and some other materials, they don't do that. The more they get exposed to water and weather, they will lose their hold. They won't hold that same size. That's why bubble bags are warranted for life.
Yeah.
One thing I found a lot with like a lot of bags to press is that like especially with hash, is that you'll actually have like where the seams are sewn in, they'll open up a little bit. So I like to personally double bag my stuff to keep quality, and I'll do opposing sides of the seams so everything gets caught the opposite way, and it double filters everything. But I don't really go for yields either whenever I press.
I think that's a very good idea with the quality that you're dealing with, because a blowout is just such a bummer, and to have to expose it to extra heat, like gathering it all and rescreening it and trying to get it to press better, I think is better to just, you know, make sure those seams are on point, or just double it up on opposite sides so that you don't get that blowouts are a bummer when the hash contaminates the oil, especially when it's a pretty decent quality hash already. You just get these kind of like chunks inside this beautiful oil, and it's a little bit rough.
Yeah. No one likes
so how do you guys feel about the tail end and like the head and the tail of rosin? Do you feel that there is or isn't, or, you know, more in flower rosin and hash rosin? Do you like to mix them? Do you like to keep them separate?
I definitely like to keep them separate myself. I just feel like, even from a photography standpoint, if I didn't even puff it at all, that one is just way nicer looking under the lens. And generally it's the one I also find myself puffing on more often than not. That early, head of the squish compared to the tail. And it also depends on whose head and whose tail we're talking, because some people, the tail is a lot, and other people just give it like a little tiny, like, oh yeah, that tail wasn't so bad at all. The end result of that squish was actually on point with the first one. So I've seen both, but for myself, I do like the head of the squish.
I usually have a pretty small tail on my squishes, and I like to cut it off a lot early, but then I like to do a lot of my second squishes, and I'll do a lot of my experimentation and stuff like that with that, because it's a good way to do it for cheap.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree there. I think that's a really tough thing for people that are making rosin. It's having that deciding factor of whether to put them together, because for some material it can be a huge sacrifice in yield. You're sacrificing quality by putting in that tail end, or you're removing that and increasing the quality, but you're sacrificing your yield at that point. So at that point, it becomes trying to find a happy medium for that, deciding on whether, maybe this micron that was pressed can be mixed in the whole, or, whether it's too dark and the taste isn't there, and it doesn't taste like anything that the rest of it, it doesn't have the same terpenes as the other microns, or whatever the case is. I think that's a big thing, especially in, like the whole dispensary market, or trying to make a business out of it, having a consistent wholesale number or something like that. It becomes tough, because certain material does different things, and it's really depending on what you want your quality to be. So if you want that super clear, just bomb all the way through, some people are sacrificing tail end, or there's a lot of material out there. If you really know what you're looking for, and you're working with the right growers, and they're being open-minded, and they're cutting, and they're starting new things, then you'll find those strains that just give you great yields all the way through with quality oil. I think it's just, that's another thing for rosin too, is having that eye for quality, and knowing what to keep separated and what to put together.
Also, it also depends on where you're coming from. Like, some people are coming from the perspective of, I just want to puff the highest quality material that I can puff. And other people are like, I am trying to do $1.3 million a year with my new business. And they're both as respectable. I'm not putting one above the other, but obviously when it's a business, mixing in the tail end and getting it, or keeping it separate and still being able to sell it for a decent dollar is usually going to be the bottom line. And when it's, puffing for your own head, the bottom line is much different. I think it's a lot more, it's a lot fewer things pass the test. That's what I would say about that.
Yeah, no, and I agree there for sure. I mean, it all depends on what you're looking for and what you're trying to be, and there's nothing wrong with having having everything together. It still makes a great quality oil. I'm not saying that it doesn't. Just like for me, I have all these little globs of these tail ends that I really don't do anything with. They're great for experimentation. I mean, they really are, especially if you want to try learning, making sauce and THCA. It's popular right now. If you really want to play with that, it's good learning material to play with. You have less loss in the R&D, but some people keep it in, some people take it out, some people, it really depends on the material, I think. But I think that's an important part of making quality rosin, and rosin that's going to be desirable, knowing what to pull and what to keep together, whether it's 5 grams on the whole pound that you're keeping out, that's the tail end. Sometimes it's not a loss. It's really not. But knowing to keep that out, just to have that much better of a product, is important. I think it's an important part of making quality solventless concentrates.
Absolutely.
I definitely think that for flower rosin, only doing one squish and not mixing in the tail end is a definite must. And then when I'm doing more dry sift rosins or lower temperature rosins, bubble hash or something, then I can do 2 squishes and I can mix them together. I find I've got a very similar consistency. But in flower rosin, I definitely can't do a second squish and put it back in. It contaminates the whole lot.
Yeah, it affects color and nucleation and everything.
Yeah, I agree.
No, I agree. Yeah, I'd say flower rosin has a bigger tail end. I mean, I always say flower rosin is like, you know, anywhere from like a 3 to 5% tail end, depending on the flowers, and depending on how you feel about it. You know, to me, that's what I feel. In most cases, flower rosin tends to have a 3 to 5% tail end. You can keep it in there, and I'm not going to say the rosin's bad at all. It's still quality rosin. But if you want to kind of improve clarity, color, a little bit of the taste for the people who are real picky, I mean, they'll notice the difference. For the masses, they might not.
Yeah, it definitely depends on what you're squishing and how hard you're pressing it as well. You know, what working backward from yield and working towards quality, I think, is the mindset that's most important. You know, if your end result is to make something that's really tasty, then you're not going to press the very end of the bag out. You're not going to press it all the way down. And it also, you know, some strains have a big tail end, like you said, and some don't.
Yeah, but how about when you're doing a press and the flow that begins is dark, and then when you leave it in there to get the full press done, when you open the paper, there's a blonde butter all inside. Like, what would you expect when the flow is dark and almost like you're looking at that shit like, man, I don't know what the hell to do with that, but that shit all around the bag right there, that's a whole nother story. So like, what if it's like that? Because I mean, I press so much different stuff that it's like there's so many different results.
You know what? I've had that happen to me with some recently with some bubble hash, and I don't know that it's like, for instance, the first wash I did, I pressed it out in just dark rosin, and the second wash it kept getting lighter all the way to like the 7th wash. It just got way lighter, and I didn't know what that was or really what to say about it or how to explain it. I don't know if that's the same thing. I mean, as far as what you're saying, to me, it sounds like, you know, when something comes out stable off the press, tends to be darker. Not always, but it tends to be darker than when it's buttered. You know, if you were to take something that's clear, stable, and then you either whip it up or you allow it to naturally nucleate, you know, it's gonna lighten up.
Yeah, what I'm trying to say is, like, if you were to take, let's just say you took an ounce of hash, you put it in a sack, you put it in the paper, you put it in the press, you bang it down, you're going for one press. The flow that starts to come out is dark. You're looking at like, man, I could have swore that was going to be way lighter than that. It's coming out dark, not like TV remote dark. You know, we're not pressing, but you know, darker of a color than you were expecting. But
yeah,
as you let the press finish, you know, the press is finishing. It's getting to the end of the flow. You're like, all right, this is it. You pull the pressure up, pull the paper out, and when you open the paper up, all the drips are dark, but everything that's on the paper is a light, white, creamy, like blonde butter. You know what I'm saying? All from that one press. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah. So when you allow that stable part that comes through, when you allow it to cross over and completely butter, is it an equal color? Does it get lighter? Is it comparable to the butter that's on the block?
Yeah. Once that stuff starts to actually butter up, it starts to get really light. Like, it's just crazy. Like, you can pull it. You can literally stick your dabber in it, and you can pull it, and it gets clear and starts to turn into like sugar as you're pulling it from that darker mass. And if you just keep pulling it with your dabber, it's like blonde. It looks exactly like the buttered stuff. So some stuff's just weird on the press.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, to me, I would say, you know, you have crystallite, or it's nucleating. It's turning to butter. So if you think about it, you know, it's pressing off of there. There's effervescence going on. You have all these terpenes creating bubbles with the heat and escaping. So now you have all this air trapped inside of this rosin. So I think when it butters up, that's also responsible to some point that why it's becoming lighter. You know, air trapped inside of it, then buttering up, it lightens up compared to something that's just so dense. It's I mean, as compared to butter, I would say stable rosin is more dense. Maybe that's why it's not as light.
Yeah, it's just crazy because the rosin that flows out is that darker color, and then all the stuff, like, I mean, sometimes it even looks like THCA. It's so white and crumbly all around the whole inside, because you know you got your sack and you have the space all the way around your paper.
Yeah,
that's the space, the void I'm talking about that fills with this crazy white. I've taken lots of pictures of it and put it on my Instagram. It depends on who.
Yeah.
But when that happens, it's pretty crazy.
It seems like you're almost creating two separate fractions, obviously.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too. But then it's crazy because that second fraction will eventually turn into what looks like around the pouch. It's really weird.
So what I think is kind of happening is possibly like you're catalyzing. It's like Sorghum was saying, you're catalyzing the process with the heat and the oxygen that kind of comes out on the initial plates when it sits for a little bit longer. And then if it matches up whenever you end up like later on down the road and after you whip it up, like I feel like it's just the same thing, but it's just happened a lot faster because the heat and everything has gotten to it way quicker. Because heat, everybody knows, kind of helps catalyst that THCA forming, which is what makes the butter turn into a white color inside of butter rosin.
Yeah, I just don't know enough. I've seen some crazy shit on the press that I just can't explain sometimes. Like I've even had THCA forming around my bags, and where I fold the papers over, like straight up white THCA, all like forming, not even butter, like beyond butter.
Yeah, you must be pressing like real low temps then, right? Below 2.
Those presses were going at like 180 to 200 degrees, and it was just really dry resin. Like super, super dry resin. You know what I mean? Not
so nice and stable resin then, right?
Yeah. I mean, you could definitely call it stable for sure. Like stuff that's really hard to press in, in paper and shit like that. Like, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, for me, dude, I feel like the temperature that's the deciding factor for me is when nucleation and crystallization stop occurring off the block. So for instance, some strains, you can press them at 180 degrees and you can get them out clear and stable. And then some strains, they're less viscous. They're more of a stable starting material. They like to shatter, or you can touch them with the hand. So they tend to need more heat to push them out. So I feel like, not having having just enough temp pushes out in enough time to stop the process of nucleation. So therefore, having just even 5 degrees under the temp that it might need. So maybe it comes out clear and stable at 205 degrees, but at 200 degrees, it's pushing out clear or stable rosin, but inside of the blocks, it has enough time to sit on that heat and to move to the next phase. It starts to butter up, and I don't know. That's all through observations and theory and things that I think, and that's what I tell myself, and that's what I feel, but same
right
shit.
I think ultimately, we got to get together, do a design experiment, and with an analysis lab, and we get a lot of answers. I mean, it costs a bit of money, but I think to do that,
I think we're at that phase now. I think that's going to start happening a lot, especially with out here, there's going to be testing required on everything. And some people do it now. Some people do it occasionally. They test stuff here and there, but everything we do is going to have to be tested at some point. So, it's all going to be on the paper. It's just a matter of how trustworthy are these companies and how accurate is this data? You're going to have to connect with the right people.
Yeah. Yeah, and as it becomes more mainstream and legal in more states, we're going to see the scientists getting into this big time, right? So, doing proper analysis, I think that's sort of the next step for where we're going to bring the next phase of rosin to, and everything.
Well, it sure has been moving at a quick, accelerated rate, almost quicker than the actual data itself. It's just being hammered out left, right, and center. A lot of people are squishing rosin, both on a commercial level and on a just personal level. The hash that I just made, the oil that I just made was very lovely. It's a bit to get off the parchment, but it is absolutely stellar quality for a little bud press.
But do you dab it?
Oh yeah, I do dab it. I did dab it, and it's delicious. Terpenoline, one of my favorites. It's real exotic sativa sort of flavor. So, what do we got? 11:30. We've been going for 2.5 hours. I could easily go for another half hour. We could definitely bring some other other rosin conversations into play here that we haven't covered. A few people asked how everyone goes about like preserving the quality of their large quantities of rosin, 100+ grams at a time. How do you preserve it to stay the way it is? I just use
cold.
Cold, exactly.
Mason jars for the win.
I say, for short-term storage, refrigeration, vac sealing, stuff like that. Long-term storage, freezing. As long as if you're going to be freezing something, it needs to be airtight, sealed up. And at that point, when you transfer it, like let's say you're going to consume it and you want to use it, it's in the freezer. Well, you take it out, you have to let it thaw out, let it get warm enough to where you can wipe the condensation off before you open it. Otherwise, you're just going to add condensation into your hash, just as if you would take it out of the fridge. You open it up right away and you get a little sizzle on the nail because you smoked it too soon. You didn't let it warm up.
True.
Yeah, I find that preserving smaller portions is easier than preserving large portions. I don't like to take like any big discs or chunks and try and store it like that. Once it's at that point, I think getting it portioned, in its parchment, in its baggie, in its package, in its vac seal, and into the refrigerator is the best way to go. Because when you store a large piece of rosin, you have this whole big thing that is going to change, and you have to kind of see what it looks like after it's come out of the fridge, after you've taken it out of its baggie, and after it's sat on the counter for half an hour. You might take something, it could be something is really, really good, but it needs 30 minutes, 60 minutes to breathe and warm up, and then it just starts reeking.
Yeah, I'd say, I mean, for me, I would say when you break it down into half grams and you get all ready, you're actually putting it into its shortest shelf life. I mean, as for storage, you can store at cool temps and still slow it down. I would say if you have a mass amount and you want to store it, to ball it up into don't have it as a slab. Ball it up. Remove as much oxygen as possible. Coldest temps possible. I mean, reducing surface area and removing oxygen and allowing the coldest environment, I think is going to be the best for storage. When it comes to, half gramming it up, whether it's in the fridge or it's in the freezer, I feel like it's still degrading faster because now you've maximized surface area. You coin it out or you throw a glob in there, but they're all half grammed with, plenty of oxygen surrounding it. Oxidization is our biggest enemy.
So while we're talking about moisture, I want to just bring something that's kind of off topic though, but with freeze dryers, since you're saying, you put a jar in the freezer, you put it in the fridge, and you take it out, you need to let it get, to room temp and wipe it off before you open it. Well, how about freeze dryers? Most people take this hash out of their freeze dryer and it's frozen. It literally is coming from outer space, and they're bringing it into a room that's cold as fuck. And then they're fucking breaking it down and jarring it up or putting it in their mason jars and storing it back in the fridge. Don't you think there's a shitload of moisture though in that hash if it doesn't actually sit out back on Earth, back on this planet in our normal environment? Wouldn't you imagine that hash would still have moisture and still be wet?
Yeah, in theory, I would say so. I mean, I would imagine that pulling it from such a cold environment. I mean, if you're pulling it from like a cold freeze dryer into your cold ass hash room, it's really gonna help. I mean, as long as you're packaging it in a really cold environment, you're gonna have less condensation occur. I mean, if it's coming from like fucking negative temps to a cold, 40-degree hash room, yeah, you're still probably gonna have condensation. And at that point, I would say letting it sit out and air dry a little bit.
But I feel
probably
like
would help.
If you take it into a cold room, I don't feel like the moisture's gone. I feel like it's just frozen with the hash. It's just there. And then you put it into jars and you're sealing in moisture. And that's why a lot of this stuff likes to butter. Like a lot of the freeze-dried hash that you see that's on the market is butter. It's all buttered up and weird in the jars, I feel
sounds like moisture.
Yeah, exactly. So I feel like a lot of people are packaging their stuff in cold rooms and keeping everything cold, but they don't realize the hash has to eventually come to planet Earth. It's going to be introduced into humidity. It's going to be introduced, right back into this environment. So that being said, no matter what, I feel like that moisture hasn't never left. So if you leave it in the jar and you sell it to somebody, like French cannoli, I seen like a little while ago, there was some hash that was like moldy in the jar. Well, that's the kind of shit that happens when you fucking leave moisture or you have any kind of colony forming units. You know what I mean? They're going to grow in there when you leave
You
that
get that mildew hash.
Exactly.
And that ain't that emerald triangle funk. That's the no bueno funk.
Yeah, I've seen it a lot. I've seen a lot of freeze-dried stuff, and I've even freeze-dried a lot of my stuff, and I still feel like microplaning and not putting it to them extreme cold temperatures and pulling a vac on it still dries hash better than a freeze dryer. Like if you're going for true connoisseur head stash type hash, you're not going to get it, in my opinion, using a freeze dryer. That shit just clumps up weird. It's just weird, man. It makes it just spacey. It's weird.
It's definitely different. I prefer to photograph properly cured resin. It shows up beautiful and globular. And I've always found that the freeze-dried stuff seems to have a large amount of capitate stalks. Even though they seem to be artifacts of their true selves, they just seem to be almost like shadows of their former self. They're still present in the photography. They're very like visible, and I don't like that either. I also am not a fan of smoking only white hash. I definitely like some amber and color to my hash. I love some white hash, but I also love some dark hash and some golden and, you know, all the different hues.
We're seeing that a lot with the market. You know, people seem to want to see things that are super light, super clear and things like that. But when you look at the grower's point of view, it's their early heads. I mean, that's what we're basically, you know, people are wanting to see their rosin. They're wanting to see this clear, light rosin. But sometimes, you know, you get those really amber heads and you can do this really nice dark rosin that still has so much terps in it and things like that. And a lot of people are not, you know, they're hating on the color of the rosin when they're not really looking at the quality of the resin.
It's interesting when you allow, I guess I would say the majority of the marketplace, because let's be honest, the majority of the marketplace on planet Earth is not like connoisseur heads, just like in anything that is consumed on the planet, from food to the clothing that we wear to the quality of the cars that we drive. Not everyone is driving around in like in a Rolls Royce. You know, like, but with cannabis, there's a large group of people that feel like they're trying to produce the highest quality. And so I just think, as much as it pains me to say it, I think when this legalization thing finally occurs, it'll be similar to all the other things that are in production. I hope the quality sticks through, but you know, with beer and all the other things that people consume on a day-to-day basis, it always seems to be that the masses want the mediocre, and that only a very small percentage of people really want the best. And even the people who you'll hear be like, oh, I need the best. It's like, well, you're not wearing like the crazy $4,000 Gucci shirt. Like, you're just wearing a t-shirt from Walmart, but you need the best resin. Like, can you imagine trying to need the best of everything? How fucking much of an insane person you would be, and not living in the reality of what most people exist in. So I get that we love the highest quality that we can have, at least when it comes to resin. I'm not going to stop being that way, that's for sure. But I'm not sure if it'll pass through to the masses when legalization hits. I want it to. But
yeah,
what's that?
I think you're going to see a lot of Bud Light out there instead of actual real product. You know what I mean? I think that's...
You know, that's the way I see it. I mean, look at Gordon Ramsay. Sure, the guy's making money, but he's not making that McDonald's money.
Yeah.
Guy's probably worth like 20. Do you know what I mean? Though, like, it's so true. Fuck, I can't imagine what McDonald's pulls in just in a month of rent with like 35,000 locations or whatever. Like, imagine all of those locations paying McDonald's rent, because McDonald's generally owns the land that those buildings go up on. That's some serious coin right there.
I think in Canada here, anyways, there's going to be sounds like there's going to be a micro cultivar, micro processing license available. So I think you're going to see dispensaries that have your Bud Light, and then you can see dispensaries that have the good quality micro processed and
I agree.
cannabis. And I think
like
I'm looking forward to that, actually.
I am as well. It's just, once again, now that's like going to be 5, maybe 10% of the marketplace, maybe.
Yeah.
And so that'll be this, it'll be a niche that the people that want to be involved in will really be fighting for, because, you know, the industry, in my opinion, I see everyone investing millions upon millions upon millions upon millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars. And to sell herb at like $8 and $10 a gram, which are basically like exactly like prohibition prices, like $4,500 for a pound of weed, mail ordered through the mail through one of the legal LPs. I'm kind of hoping on seeing field grown and greenhouse grown cannabis drive the price of cannabis down to the point where the small niche markets, I don't think there'll be as many people vying for a position once the perceived prohibition-based profit drops out of the bottom, hopefully, of this industry in the very near future. Because, you know, not that I don't like people making money. I think making money is a great thing. I just don't think it should be equal to the prohibition-based profit margin that came before this new sort of legal, medical, recreational market that is upon us now. I like for the prices to be cheaper. $3,000, $2,000 for a pound is insane. Like, even really $500 for a pound is pretty costly. It makes it not realistic for just anyone to be able to access large quantities of resin for themselves. And, you know, it should be available to people that are sick and dying and have like stage 3 and 4 cancers should have access at a relatively inexpensive price. Certainly not $100 a gram, you know, $3 grand a pop for the 30 grams for 30 days. That's it's borderline criminal, just from my perspective anyway.
So I was wondering if anybody out there, like, I see the future of rosin without parchment and collecting like we do right now. Does anybody else have any ideas on that?
On parchment-free rosin pressing?
Absolutely.
Yeah, like I mean, the way we've designed our press, I've left a big space under the bottom. I want to put a vacuum under there and collect it as it presses in like sort of a continuous batch format.
Right. Yeah.
I actually ran into a small rosin press manufacturer when I was at some show that had something very similar where they used it was a form already within the press itself, so you would actually fill it, press it through, had a grate underneath that would actually allow the resin to actually flow through to the bottom to a small collection vessel. They didn't really have it quite down to the details in the sense that you would get a lot of fountain flow, meaning that the resin would flow up on the walls of this little sort of like a mold. And but anyways, yeah, I mean, it's definitely I think it's definitely the way to go, because fewer resources, less material that you end up using, less material you're wasting, no filters, you know, all that stuff. Yeah.
You'd have to be sure that you weren't contaminating, you know, once again, when we're talking about, I guess this is the commercial versus the small batch, where you wouldn't want to contaminate the oil with, you know, the end results of oil squishing out and contaminating the plate, where you come and you squish your next one, and at the start you clear off this oil that was kind of left over from the tail end of your last press.
Right, it's definitely more of a production, you know, I guess it would be more for production than actually high quality, you know, product.
Those are always the two, the hardest two to marry, to get, you know, in symbiosis, where you can up your you know, commercialize your process, but without really lowering your quality to, you know, noticeable levels.
There's something maybe I can add to that. Actually, I've actually realized that you can actually grow production level. You can just only grow in one direction. As long as, say, your thickness or what your capita per ounce grows in only one direction, should be able to increase flow while maintaining the same quality that we're getting. But as soon as you start going this way and that way with what you're putting in the plate, that's when your quality starts to go down.
I would agree with that.
Very interesting. And that's just because it's getting too hot, or you're getting like what's the main reason behind that?
I think there's a limit to how much plant material the rosin has to travel through to find its way outside of the said filter being used.
Right. Yeah, makes sense. The flow, and the type of resin for that matter as well. Like
certainly
Phil was mentioning earlier about, you know, the stuff that wants to butter up and not create that flow and just hold tough, create a little plug in between itself and the screen, versus the stuff that just saps out upon touching it. You don't even really need much of a pre-press, and you just get this beautiful flow of rosin. There's lots for us to learn about. I think Lindsay's correct in the sense that a lot of this stuff needs to be tested. Like once LPs and other, you know, federally legal entities are doing this on a level where you're adding all the data, and with that data extrapolating and creating sort of a digital landscape to lead you towards, you know, better innovation and better manufacturing.
I really encourage everybody out there who's playing with rosin, if you got enough material at hand, just try some different crazy experiments. I did one with a vacuum bag. I sealed it in a vacuum bag, some flour, and it came out white, and it was incredible. My yield was pretty poor, but I mean, if we just keep playing with it and keep pushing this forward, I think I don't think anything can touch rosin. I think from the THCA stuff we see now, you know, it's such a diverse form of extraction that I think everyone in this room, we can all just keep pushing it like we've been doing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
I think the more we explore the boundaries, you know, the better it gets. You know, it's exactly what we have been doing, and it's the reason why we are here at such a quick rate. I mean, you look at all these other methods and how long it took to get to where they are, you know, and we've evolved in such a quick time, and it's because we experiment, we try new things, we make mistakes, we observe the fact that the mistake we made, you know, it put us to another level, you know. So I think exploring those boundaries and you know, not being so close-minded and thinking that, you know, we've hit our max, you know, that's, I mean, we thought we were done making rosin, you know, like we couldn't believe it. And then now, you know, we're actually mechanically separating THCA and the sauce fraction, you know, so what's next?
Why don't we talk about that for a little bit, Soil Grown?
Well,
you know, like,
yeah, I mean,
imagine people are watching that have no idea on how to produce THCA using a rosin press, and also how to produce diamonds with a solventless sauce.
I mean, I think it's just it's a matter of just playing with temperature and time, you know. So you just got to understand that, you know, once a product has crystallized and nucleated and crystallized, now you have different melting points. So understanding the melting points of all the cannabinoids, you know, gives you an idea. I think as far as I've gone, you know, I've just made, you know, decent sauce and stuff like that. I don't think it's at its greatest yet. I think there's a lot of dialing in to do, but I think it's just you know, pressing things out in fractions, playing with material. You definitely have to experiment. You can listen to what everyone says on how to do it and everything, but unless you're playing with it and doing it yourself and making the mistakes on your own, that's when you're going to learn. Because I mean, you know, I've read things, I've read forums, I've read people doing stuff, and you know, I've tried things, but it just gets you to a point. It leads you to the water, but you know, it's a matter of you making that mistake on your own, or trying something. Sometimes you hit it first try, sometimes you don't. But you know, as for making THCA, you know, have fun with it. Take some, you know, take some degraded rosin or some buttered up rosin, you know, press it at low temps, gradually increase the high temps, and you know, once you start doing that, you'll really understand it. You kind of get an understanding of what it is, and that's what's going to teach you, you know. So you got to figure it out on your own. I think just listening to the way everybody else does it is good, because it gives you an idea, but trying things on your own is what's going to get you to the way you do things. And you just might find a better way than everybody else that everybody else wants to listen to. So, you know, listen, there's a lot of information on making it out there, a lot. It's pretty basic, but it is a basic process. There's nothing crazy about it. It's not very technical. It sounds like it and it seems like it, but you know, patience is key when it comes to this, and that's what most people don't have. They want instant results, and that you're not going to get. You know, it's all about patience, and that's it.
Perfect. Yeah, excellent. So yeah, that the basic drop really there, aside from, you know, figure it out on your own, is just the starting point is just pressing a little bit of buttered out rosin, or, you know, some rosin that you have, and low temp pressing it, raising the temp slowly but surely to get up to that point where you can see these fractions occur, and you can extract. Is that on your mic, the guy coughing? Style grown?
Oh yeah, my bad. That is. I thought.
No, that's okay, because you were. I muted every single person, and I'm like, that motherfucker's still coughing. Who the fuck is that? And then I realized, oh, it's the only mic I didn't mute. But you were talking at the time, so it's fine. And don't worry, it sounds like he got a great rip, and that's what Hash Church is really all about. Having a great rip, and yeah, it's
right.
That's it.
Can I ask a question real quick about the solventless THCA stuff? Like,
please do.
How do you guys go about taking a dab once you've caramelized it, essentially? Like, once you get it into those rocks, like, and you put it into the jar and you dump the terps back on and stuff, how would you how would you take a dab if the rocks are bigger than you want to dab? Like, is this?
I don't. You seen my stuff, dude? I got little pebbles. Mine look like little aquarium rocks.
No, I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about just in general. I see people with fucking stones. Like,
yeah.
How the fuck take a dab though? Like, I want to dab. What am I gonna break my dabbers to get into these rocks? I mean, like, how do I get a dab once these rocks are so huge in there?
Yeah, I mean, because technically we call them diamonds. It's cool. It's fun. I like the name. I mean, it's THCA regardless. But I mean, it's harder than like crushing down a crystal that was grown. You know, that's actually a crystal compared to us taking like microscopic crystals, melting them down into an amorphous solid, and now we're creating these boulders and we're saturating them with the terpenes. So when someone goes to break them, they're hard. They shatter like glass, and they get real hard to break up. So that's why I think, you know, it looks really cool and all, and it's great for the gram, but that's really all it is when it comes to serving it out and everything. Obviously, you're gonna have to break that down, but I mean, for storage purposes, I think it's great.
What if you do like you did in that one video, though? You showed everybody that you could smash it into a fucking gazillion pieces. But what if you did? You smash it down in that powder, and then you mix that powder into the terps at the same ratio. That way it's actually like dabbable. Like, you can just get a regular dab of it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Maybe that might be the way to go.
Yeah, you know, and at that point, dude, it's like you're basically separating everything. And if you do that, you can crush it down and then add it back. And now you just have sugar again, which you can make sugar. You know, there's techniques to make that consistency, and you can do that without separating everything and getting back to that. Because all it is you're just making that THCA back to a microscopic scale. You know, it's tiny. You know, I don't know. I think it'd be better for like smoking purposes. But as far as looks, you know how people are, dude. They don't get to try it or smell it. So, you know, you're gonna make it as appealing as you possibly can.
Wouldn't it still look good though? I mean, you've caramelized it to the point where it's going to stay glassy. I don't think that it will break down really. So I mean, wouldn't it still kind of look good mixed in? Like, it's still going to be crunchy. It's not going to be like the regular sugars that we're making pressing. I don't think.
No, you're right. You're right. And no, I mean, I think it does look good. But you know, people are so hyped up on this sauce, dude, and they got to understand it's not the same sauce as like these BHO extractions. You know, you get more of a less viscous sauce. Yeah, you can get it to run when it's nice and warm. Some people are getting their extraction on the terp fraction down, and I can't say that you know, you can't get some real viscous sauce at a cool temp, but you know, over time it starts to sugar up, and it depends on your techniques. That's why patience is important. You know, the quicker you are with it, you'll notice your sauce likes to sugar back up, because you're with those terpenes and that THCA present. Or with the terpenes present, that THCA comes out with no problem through the screen at a lower temp. So even though it has a higher melting point, the terpenes they have some kind of reaction with the THCA that's allowing it to dissolve through, or not dissolve because it's not actually dissolving, but to push through. So you know, being slow with that and getting the most volatile part out, which are your terpenes, getting those out low and slow, you know, patience, that's going to be a key part. But I mean, as far as like packaging and looks and consumption wise, yeah, I think having small, if you want like rocks or like diamonds, keep them small so that way it's easy to get at least a dab size, you know, or you can break it. It's not going to shatter into all these pieces everywhere. It's going to be easier to fucking dab.
Yeah, that's the only thing I was wondering, because I know some people really putting boulders in these fucking jars, and I'm just like, man, how the fuck are you gonna get a dab without breaking the jar or your dabber? Like, how is this gonna work?
So for the THCA by itself, I like to leave those big though, because I don't know. No, well, actually, this last batch I did was all little pebbles, but like one batch I did, I just left them all as like, you know, 0.5 gram chunks. And yeah, I realized it's just like, man, it's a pain in the ass to dab on that shit, dude. Like if you really want to dab, it's like you broke the whole thing down to powder just to get one little piece that you can actually fucking put in the fucking rig, you know? So what's the point?
100% on that.
It's all about looks, dude. The first thing is always presentation. So, you know, when you have the most appealing thing in the crowd, that's what people are going to grab, whether they're going to be happier with that or they're going to be happier with the person who decided that that is not the best route to go. And this is, you know, because they've already been there, done that. You know, that's it. People got to learn on their own that it sucks. You know, this is better.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I know some people would take big enough dabs that they would just drop a whole diamond in there, but I'm not that fucking guy. Like, I just want a normal dab, and I don't want to have to work for it with a pick and an axe and get crazy.
I kind of wanted to ask everyone what they thought as we just kind of come out the third hour here of the present. What do you guys feel about the future of rosin? You know, where are we headed? I mean, obviously, we heard Lindsay earlier say that he wants to see robots filling the unit, which is definitely one unique perspective for sure. But where do we see the future of rosin? Where is this going to go? Is this going to become the new pharma grade quality medicinal raw product for all of these different products that are going to be available in the medicinal world? Is it going to become... What's that?
Like I said a while ago, you know, I feel like it's going to be the standard of extraction. You know, people are understanding that they can get, you know, the same quality resin, and, you know, whether they want to separate it, you might not be growing crystals, but I mean, we can pull sauce, we can have THCA separated from the terpene fraction. We can get yields similar to, if not the same. I don't see why eventually, no, anybody in their mind wouldn't think of possibly converting or going in that route, or people that are new or coming onto the scene, that's going to be the number one option that they're going to go for. I see it being the future and the biggest extraction method in the future for sure. Most definitely.
Yeah, I feel like the way the world's going right now, with everyone becoming more health conscious, becoming more aware of what they eat and shit, they're going to start to realize the same thing with the concentrates. It's like, if you put the concentrates in front of people on a table and you ask them, okay, this one's made with heat and pressure, this one's made with water ice, this one's made with just shaking the bud, and this one's made with butane gas. Anybody in their right mind is not going to pick the butane gas. They've never taken a dab in their life. They're going to say, what do you mean you made it with butane gas? Isn't that for lighters? That's going to be someone's response, in my opinion. So I don't know. I feel like the more newcomers that come are going to be less likely wanting to dab shit. I mean, I've already seen a lot of people convert and they don't dab BHO at all. And they were like believers of it. I mean, I was at one time too. So if I can change, I feel like a lot of people can. So I definitely agree with what you're saying, bro.
Anyone else?
Yeah, and then I seen right there, Elysian put solventless sauce carts. That's definitely the future, and it's great because you know what? I have not come out with the pen for the fact that I'm not going to use vegetable glycerin or propylene glycol or, you know, just any of these fillers. And, you know, I've wanted to have a solventless pen, but how's it solventless? It might be solventless, but you're adding, you know, fillers into that shit, you know? So to actually fractionally separate this shit, and then, you know, you can go from that process, and now you'll be able to make solventless carts because now you have those fractions separated for you to manipulate and do whatever's necessary to get to that point.
Indeed, it seems like a lot of new people who might come into the industry are going to be sort of more prone to using pens because just the access and how easy it actually is, and the discreetness, you know, and everything else that comes along with it, I think. So in general, I feel like that is going to take up a huge portion of the market.
I think for Canada too, yeah, it's going to be huge here in Canada with the LP market. I mean, where they're not accepting anything other than CO2 extractions right now. So there is a demand here for dabs and things like that. And being that legalization is coming, it's most definitely going to be the leading extract here in Canada.
Yeah, just look at the price of a CO2 machine compared to the rosin pens.
I know,
They're
exactly.
spending millions of dollars on giant systems, and you know, with a hair straightener, you can make you know, it just blows my mind.
Yeah, I seen CO2. It did 40 pounds in 5 hours, I think. You know, we can get rosin there. We can make a press or multiple presses or a stacked press or some variation of a press to do that. No problem. No problem. 40 pounds and
there's going to be. Yeah, there's going to be rosin extraction for use of capsules and all that stuff, and then there's going to be more of a, you know, of a art craft approach to it, and I think, you know, both aspects will be very beneficial for the industry.
I think if you compare it to the beer industry, you know, you got your Bud Lights and your Coors Lights, and then you got your Sierra Nevadas, and as Sierra Nevada's grown, it's kind of gone a little closer to Bud Light, and then you got your true, you know, classy blue color like Lagunitas, for example, and then beyond that, you have your craft ales and your sours and those real specialty items, and I think rosin is going to be able to provide, you know, for every demographic. If you want to dab and your only criteria is that there's no gas in it, no solvent in it, well, then you might be a Bud Light rosin guy. You know, if you like to drink 6 beers or drink 6, you know, pale ales, maybe you want some really good flower rosin that's kind of middle of the road where you're at, or maybe you have a special occasion and you want to bust open that sour you've been talking to your friend about and, you know, get down on some whole plant fresh frozen, you know, unicorn rosin. Yeah, and I think there's no reason that products made with solvents really are going to have a long stay. I think rosin is definitely the future, and I think as people start to get a little more open-minded and realize that it's not just what everybody was saying a year ago or just what these people are saying now, that it's this whole culture and practice that's going to grow and evolve, and you're going to see a lot of people stand out with, you know, their own method. You know, you're also going to see a lot of people jump in, I think, trying to copycat what's trendy. Like, okay, I'm going to harvest everything early. My hash has to be clear. My hash has to be white. And it's like, man, you know, what about the guy who grew it organic, let it go 12 weeks, you know, it didn't see water, you know, it only saw water at the end of its life, and it presses out some beautiful maple syrup color fucking rosin. Like, yeah, I just think it's just going to take a little time, and that we all have to keep, you know, just doing what we do, and we're going to be able to show people, you know, we have to be ambassadors to this. We have to show people our products and not just try and sell them on our way of doing it, but as a whole solventless culture. I think we could definitely take some tips from how the beer industry does it, and we should all kind of decide where we want to stand with that. And, you know, sometimes you like a Pilsner, sometimes you like an ale. Occasionally I like this kind. And if I show up to somebody else's house and all they're serving is Bud Light, well, fuck, I'll have 4 of them, whatever. I feel like 12 scale rosin up to a large production and maintain quality. It's quality and quality out. So if you're using good flowers, good hash in, you're going to get it out. And it's just a matter of how big you want that scale to go. I don't personally like the taste of a lot of CO2 stuff, but improperly, it tastes great, you know? So I think scaling it up with quality in mind, it's going to be easy to do, and it's the future.
Look at that. Compassion made it into the room.
Thanks.
Dude, right at the end, you made it.
I don't know. Am I here?
You're here. I can hear you perfect.
Whoa, sorry everybody for being late. Totally appreciate what all you guys do, especially coming from where I came from. You can't even almost call it rosin, the same thing, completely different. But the work you guys do, the knowledge you share, I mean, that's really what it's about for me as far as the whole cannabis industry. But what's next? How do we make it better? Who's doing what, and where can we turn the corner and be curious, right? Because that was always my thing. It was, okay, this is so awesome as it is right now. What's next?
Well, why don't you give everyone a little bit of history of when you came up with that post and how you kind of came up with it, and explain to them like they've never even heard the story that, from my perspective, you're the first person I ever saw on a cannabis forum talk about rosin, and it seems to go back to, does it go back before 2006?
I think it was 2005 was
right.
when I really started working on it, and I wanted to do a lot of research on it first, checking out a bunch of books, seeing information online, because I didn't want to say, oh, I'm making a new product when somebody else, maybe already had done that. Basically my background, I was always into hash. I grew up in the Kootenays in the Nelson area, and I don't know if you guys know that area. It's pretty legendary for its top-notch strains and extractions and all types of stuff. But I started making hash at about 14, 15 years of age. It was like we wanted to get a buzz. How do we get a buzz for free, right? We were kids, so we'd get shake and we'd rub it over a screen, and it was like, it was good for then. I mean, and people were like, oh, you got to use bud, blah 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 blah, and we were like, no, look at this stuff, it's really good just from the leaves, right? And so I went through a lot of different processes, trying to stick hash together and stuff like that, using oil as a medium to put big bricks together and stuff. And then the quality just started showing up, like everybody's quality of trim. People were taking care of the buds, curing everything better. And then I was seeing a better result of hash that I was getting. So my method was a bowl with heat from steam. And I would just take my hash powder, the keef, and I would dump it in there, and I would just sort of smear it with a spoon until it would stick together, right? And then I'd have that busted out into the grams and go from there. But as the quality got really good, I started seeing this film build on the bowl, and I kind of was like, oh, it's just wax or whatever, kind of wrote it off and sort of mixed it back in the best I could, and until when I was working at the VIX and the Great Grower Gardener, product was coming in, and this one batch, I think it was the Imposter, and the shit just glued right to the side of my bowl, and I was like, what the hell's going on here? Like, this is something more. So I scraped all the powder off and got it to just that film, and didn't have a razor blade or anything because I wasn't into oil. I was making full melt hashes all the time, and so I used a butter knife and scraped enough of this stuff off the side of the bowl and threw it in my pipe, took a puff, and I almost passed out because it was just, it was so much stronger than I was used to, right? It was like activating these new neurons in my brain that were just waiting for this new cannabis euphoria experience. And first thing I did is went over to a buddy's house, and I was like, gotta check this shit out, dude. Like, here's the hash. Gave him the hash first, and it melted. We're probably talking 4-star hash for my second screening. And then I was like, try this. And he did the same thing, coughed his brains out and almost passed out. And we were like, there's something going on here. And getting back to all the research that I did, the only thing I really found, I forget what book it was mentioned, was might have been Clark's, but it was how they would produce in one of the hash countries. They would press and press and press, and after a full day of pressing, there would be this little bit of red oil left on the press that they would collect, and that was their sort of potent, really, well, that was rosin, really, is exactly what it was. But it wasn't, it was considered like a byproduct of like pressing pounds and pounds of hash, right? So it wasn't necessarily a feasible product to bring to market. And so all I did was started figuring out how to just take the cream off and get production. We're talking 5%,
Right.
7%. Oh, look at this! I got a gram of rosin. I spent 2 hours and I got a nice gram puck of rosin. And you can see all that on my IC Mag account as well. But once I got it all together, and I figured it was worthy calling a new name because it was a new process for extracting something from hash, and it was giving people a dab experience without having to go to isopropanol at the time, which was probably being used a lot more, or butane and stuff like that. But my props definitely go to the good growers like the Great Gardener and the people at the VIX and the groundbreaking work that was done there to just sort of bring it all to all of this in a way. The dispensary, paving the way for dispensaries, solventless extract, a whole bunch of stuff. Sorry, I'm rambling on, a little nervous.
No, dude, that was stellar. Honestly, I was kind of bummed out that you weren't making it in at the start, and I was really like, man, what will this show be without Compassion telling us about the OG Rosin post? I remember the photo that you had posted, which I obviously will have to post here as well, which was and you had posted a few of them. This one in particular was very, very just. It was a powerful image, I remember, because I felt like I was one of the only few people at the time taking pictures of really melty resin with powerful macro lenses and stuff. And you posted just a few pictures, but one of them caught my eye like nobody's business. I'm just trying to think if it's in here somewhere.
I know what you're talking about. The best word for it, I think, is provocative. It's just so like, what is that stuff? Like. And especially back then, because I mean, you were doing the groundbreaking for the bubble hash, water extraction, and bringing the higher quality resins to the picture that didn't have to be made with petrochemical solvents.
Yeah,
that's the one. She's a beauty. It looks like eggs or something. I don't know.
Oh yeah, no, I right away I was like, wow, the melt quality on this is next level. I definitely have to figure this out, and it was sweet to be able to see it, the process, and at the time that you released it, it was great because, as I said earlier, when I first released the bags, I didn't realize it at the time, but it was this small percentage of people. Because I was always amazed, people that had never made hash in their life would just send me a picture of basically what would be known as the greatest quality hash in the world, no matter who you are. And they'd be just Joe Blow nobody. And the next day they'd be like one of the greatest hash makers on the planet because they had the fire material. But that was a very, very small percentage of people. And many of the people who used my bags got 2 and 3 and maybe 4-star. But the elusive 5 and 6 stars just weren't there for them. So when you released this method, I thought it was going to catch on a lot more than it actually did, because it kind of was exciting and people were doing it, but it didn't really catch on the way I thought it would,
Well, it was a lot of work, right? And the time it took and everything. And that's why, if you go through the posts that I did do about it, that it was always like, hey, I get it. This is not the best method, right? Like I'm sharing this because there's something here, and if anybody figures out a better way, then share that information for us, right? Because this is for us. Let's put a patent on it or a trademark or whatever and control it. No. That's not what this plant is about. It's about sharing and furthering all of our knowledge about it, right? It's the biggest.
Well, and that's what publishing and putting the information out to the public, that once you've previously published something, it's no longer patentable. So that that's the best way to do that. If you want to, I mean, it sure made sense with water hash. How was I ever going to sell people bags if I didn't tell them how to use them?
Yeah.
I got these bags, and if you figure it out, you might get something really good. But I'm not going to be showing you how to do it. So that would be a little bit ridiculous. Anyway, that was awesome having you give us that historical context. So 2005, and was it Overgrow that you posted it on first?
Yeah, it was definitely on Overgrow. I reposted it onto IC Mag just because of what happened with OG Forums there. I just wanted to make sure that knowledge was still out there for sure. Again, you guys have helped take it to a whole other level, and I'm super grateful being in a market that's saturated with petrochemical based solvent-based extractions, you know, like to be able to have very cheap materials at home, to be able to press out something so that I can have some smoke is huge to me, you know, like, because I was still rubbing some buds in the screen, pressing some of that out, you know, like on my bowl, because I'm like, I want to dab, and dabbing's totally where it's at. I remember the Hashmaster Cut little dab rig, you know, I got one somewhere packed away, and we were doing that shit 10 years ago at that time as well, right? So I mean, we all sort of one step, we all work together to create a bigger picture and a masterpiece really over time, right? So yeah, props to all you guys.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome, dude. I am beyond stoked that you managed to make it in. 777 people watching right now. I don't know why I like that number, but I do. I get the idea that Solventless Mind would like that number as well, but I could be wrong. You like that number? All right. All right, cool. Well, listen, guys, that was really quite an incredible episode. If you guys feel that you want to talk more, and there's things that we haven't talked about, I don't mind leaving you to it for a little while. Otherwise, I think I'm going to call it a day, and thank everyone for coming in and being a part of the past, present, and future of Rosin Hash Church 2.0 episode. Maybe we could do another episode where we make it more about tech and the things that we actually want to share. We can really just go into a full tech episode. I know people were like, oh, this is just a circle jerk. It really wasn't. It was important for everyone to get the perspective and, to get to know each person on the panel. And maybe we'll plan in the next month or two a full Rosin tech episode, and I'll invite you guys all back if that sounds like something you would like to be a part of.
Let's do it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Good.
Down.
Sounds good.
So yes, Soil Grown, obviously huge thanks to you and the Sasquatch family for coming out and sharing and leading the way. My boys over at Maple Butter on the east coast of things here in Canada for their artesian butter in my bowl. Thank you guys so much. Thanks Lindsay for coming out. Thanks, Lindsay, for coming out for Evolved Cannabis, as well as Honey Butter. Dude, I'm still blown away by your photos and the quality of the work that you do. Solventless Mind, always a pleasure. And Elysian Research, thanks for coming out. Let's do it again soon, guys. Thank you, Compassion. You really finished it off perfectly for me. I couldn't have finished this episode without your story. So thanks so much.
Cheers. Thanks, bro.
Awesome, everybody.
Phil, Bob, Tom.
Thank you.
What's up, guys?
Hey, guys.
Thanks,
Hey, guys. Fun.
Peace out, everyone. May the full melt bless your bowl sooner than
Ciao,
later.
Marcus.
Peace.
Thanks, Marcus.